call the July 21st, 2022 workshop to order. Commissioner Smith, you give us the prayer and the pledge, please, sir.
Assume that to the prayer. Our Father God, we come once again. Thank you for the blessings that God bestowed upon us. Thank you, Father, for this opportunity to continue to be servants of this city. We ask our Lord to now prepare for this budget workshop, that you will go before us, prepare the way. Give us the mind and the heart we need to serve the people. And these things we ask in our Son Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so we've got three departments that are presenting tonight. We're going to start out with IT and Rob Hippler.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Good evening. Robert Hippler, Information Technology Department, IT Director, for short. We are using new software this evening from the Finance Department for the budget, and I'm going to be running solely off of their software. I believe I was duped into not doing a PowerPoint, but we're going to make it through this with just what I have. So I'm going to start off with the highlights of overall where our budget is today, where it was last year, and how we got where we are. I'll certainly tell you where we went from different budget lines, where money was transferred over. Just you're going to see some large changes in 22-23 fiscal year. So start out with, we're looking for 2 additional personnel. We're looking for a GIS coordinator, and we are certainly lacking that personnel at the department. We have an individual GIS at the Public Services Department, and he can't possibly do everything that needs to be done for the city. So we are lacking a lot of functionality with online mapping, CRA mapping, making it interactive. There's a lot of stuff that can be done, but we don't have the personnel to do it right now. So that is one of the actual requests we have. And also I need another social media, graphic designer, you name it, person in here to assist and get us so we're able to promote the city more. I have an individual doing this who's doing outstanding job, but she is a person, and with the department's request, pulling it from side to side, I can't, there's only so much I can do. There's a lot of stuff in IT that needs to be done as far as what this person was brought in for, such as content creation, different forms digitizing on the website for each of the departments to make it more efficient for the residents and customers. So I'm looking for another media person, and that person will also assist when we start doing our full board streaming with the new council chamber AV uplift in here. That is going to be one of the bigger requests we have for it. The second portion of it is going to be for multi-factor authentication maintenance. That's a new cost that we didn't have last year. That was a project that I implemented this past year. It's a necessity with today's age with malware and ransomware going on that I need some sort of other form of assurance that if somebody were to get compromised or thinking that they're going to a trusted site using their password, they're going to enter it into a SharePoint site. Here's your document, Mr. Smith. That happens way too often, unfortunately, and once your password's compromised, they have free reign to get onto your account and start trying to impersonate you. And then, of course, if they get something local on your machine, then we get the ransomware incident. So I'd rather that not happen. So one of the first things I did, again, was to go ahead and institute the multi-factor authentication, and it went over pretty well. Not too many complaints out of it. Next portion is going to be the Motorola P25 system. That is the radio communications for public safety. That encompasses public service as well. The wireless ring around the city, that's how all of our remote locations, the fire departments 2 through 6, Northwest Rec, Grossenbach, some of the water treatment plants, that's how their data gets back and forth to us. So that maintenance through Motorola went up 4% this year, so that was another $35,000, $40,000 increase in the 4600 line, just so you know where that is. So another thing that Motorola kind of dropped on me this year is that they're no longer doing their, I won't call it antivirus, but managed detection and response on the P25 system, again, which is the radio side of it. We either need to opt out saying that we don't want to participate in it, or we opt in and there's a $90,000 charge for it and they maintain everything on it. There is a spot or there is a firewall that separates our network from theirs at one point, but it's one of those, catch-22s. I'd rather have it than not. So that is an ask that I didn't have last year. Next year, the maintenance will go down to about $45,000, so it won't be the full institute on that, but moving forward, there will be a maintenance cost on that. The next item is going to be the Harmon Road Tower Maintenance Program. The tower needs to be inspected as is. Again, it was built back in 1989, so I needed somebody to actually come out and look at the tower, check out the guy anchors, dig down below it, make sure they're still in there, check the tension of the actual guy wires themselves. I don't have any records of that being done in the last, I don't have any records of that being done. So
You
that
have no record of it ever being inspected?
I don't have any record of it, no, and I don't know that there was one ever written down anywhere in the past. I can't say that it hasn't been done, but I have no knowledge of it being done in the last 3.5 years, 4 years, since we've taken that radio system. So as you remember, the radio system was brought over to IT probably a little over 4 years ago. I was right under the previous administration wanting us to maintain the system, and we brought it in, I think as soon as Mayor Nelson came in, we were kind of doing the handoff from the individual that was doing it. And it was kind of a big lift for us to do it, but we continued on with the existing manpower we had in there. So that was another piece that we've absorbed with it, but I don't have anything showing that it has actually been done. So that is a necessity. That's going to be like $20,000. What that'll cover, again, is the initial certification of it, making sure the wires are tensioned properly, the checking out the anchors to make sure they're not moving. And then again, anytime we have any type of a high wind storm or any tropical storm come through, a tornado or any high weather wind storm, because of Lake Apopka being there coming off of it, we're subject to it, they'll come out again and inspect it to make sure nothing's changed on it. So that is, like I say, I think that's right at $20,000 for that portion. Another thing I added last year, another layer of cybersecurity, is cloud backup replication. We maintain our backups on-prem. They are encrypted, but just another layer, I'm putting them out to the cloud as well, which they're encrypted as they go out for it, just as another way of recovering it should we have to do that. That's like $14,000 per year. That was a cost we did not have last year. Security camera replacement. The existing camera system we have is at best a prosumer system. It's not something that you would see normally at a city government or what have you. It's great for the homeowner, maybe a small business, but it's not doing anything as far as, if we stick it on our outside buildings, yeah, I can see who you are, but if I try zooming in, it pixelates too far out so that I can't really make out what's going on. So inside of a building, it works fine. If I stick it outside and we try to zoom in on anything, you're going to wash it out. And unfortunately, we've had way too many incidents from the police department trying to get evidence, or hey, we just had this stolen, they need to look at the camera, and when they try zooming in, it's of no evidentiary value. So we are looking to go with that, and that's also a police department initiative. They're switching over to the Fusus solution, which all of our cameras will actually incorporate with that system. But this is part of it from the IT side, because we have about 130 cameras throughout the city that need to be changed out. This is not an entire lift of that. This is probably about 33% at best. So we'll figure out the key locations that they need to be changed out at, and we're going to work on those first, but it's just a better camera system for
How
it.
many cameras do we have?
About 130.
And who maintains them?
We are the first line of defense for all of that, and we maintain them. Some of these were put in by our wireless ring provider or the contractor for that, but as far as when we're maintaining the cameras, we deal with it unless it's something we can't get too high up on a lift or something that we don't have access to.
When you say we maintain it, who
IT,
maintains it?
IT,
You do?
yes,
Physically?
physically.
You go out for 130 cameras?
I go out for a camera that needs to be repaired, yes. If there's an issue with the camera, so on the back of City Hall, there's cameras that point down in different directions. I mean, I'll address these. I can climb up to the roof. I'll throw a ladder on the small section back here and carry another ladder up with me, jump up to that next level, and I'll deal with those. But there's areas that I can't get to with the ladder that are either put up by the third party, and I'll say, hey, I need you to come out and take a look at this camera. It's not functioning. So we maintain the camera system for the city currently.
That's interesting. I never realized we had that many and that you were,
It grew. It was initially a City Hall initiative, and at the police department, that's where it started out at. And then, once somebody else from another department saw it, said, hey, I'd like to get a couple here and then a couple here, and it kind of grew from there. So
when did we start doing this program?
That was back at 2015, 2016. That happened under Mayor Kilsheimer. I think when he
Right.
did the reorganization of the City Hall outside here, and that's where the first, test bed. I think there was about 16 cameras that came internally in City Hall altogether. So that was the initial implementation of it.
Okay.
And how many cameras the ask is for this?
At best, I may get maybe 40, maybe. That's if I can find a decent deal and hopefully get some sort of bulk price on it. But the cameras that we currently have deployed, at the time, we could get them for about $130. They're now going for $300 and $400 a piece if you can get them. And it's just the supply chain it's a wreck. So it's really, I'm hoping to get a much better quality camera, and I'll probably get 30-ish with what we're looking to do so that it is a good camera. I mean, I don't want to throw money away because I already have what we got. I mean, I don't want to do this again, so it needs
Is
to
the
be a...
plan to do the remainder of them next year, year after?
Correct, yes. That'll be a continuous plan until we can get them changed out.
And all of the, I guess, software will
So
sync
under this
together?
software I mentioned with the police department, Chief McKinley is out at this point, but they're looking at a solution called Fusus. It's for evidentiary, but it also allows you to have any type of camera that has an RSTP stream to it to get that camera coming in. It doesn't care who the VMS is, the video management solution software is, it's just looking for that stream. So everything will actually go into that system so that we have one place to look versus now we have an access camera system we look into, which is a good solution. I only have like 3 of those cameras though. I have the Unify system, which is the 130, and then there's going to be the police department side, which is the Fusus, which again, it's more of a management software that's going to look at all of the cameras. They will go into that portion, and that'll be something that the chief will present probably a coming meeting of some more of the capabilities, but it also helps some of the businesses in the city if they have camera systems, if they so choose to opt into it and provide a feed. There's a box we would put out there and actually take just the stream and of only what they want us to see, and in case anything happens to it, for evidence. That's all it is. It's not, you don't have to do it. It's something voluntary on that part, but that is a capability of the software.
Gotcha.
Let's see. One of the other things, I mentioned to the mayor that I consider, FY '23 going to be a cybersecurity jump for the IT department. So some of the things we currently do for remote access is we have a firewall that we have a client that we allow people that have a use case to actually come in remote through the firewall and get to their desktop. I try not to do it for everybody just because of I don't know what computer you have. I mean, I don't know if you're running a Windows 7 or an XP machine at the house that doesn't have update patches on it from Microsoft, or if it's a Mac, depending on what the iOS is on it. I don't like the idea that we're doing that. So to stop this, I'm going to my plan is to buy laptops for those who need, or critical, or say they need these set up for it, as well as a docking station so that I can put, the monitors as well for them to have set up at their house. And that'll be their VPN connection. The laptops will be controlled through our MDM to ensure they have the latest updates on them, and we know where they are as far as that goes. So right now, if somebody comes and says they need access for it, I've asked the question, okay, everything's up to date, you're running the latest version, you're running at least Windows 10, yep, okay, you're getting your updates, you have antivirus. I have to take their word for it because I can't, I'm not running out their house to check it. So we have it to a limited number of users. Of course, when COVID picked up back in the end of 19, beginning of 20, we opened that up a little bit so that we could have more individuals connecting in because we needed to. I've kind of scaled that back a little bit, and again, it's more of a use case, a specific use. I need to have it, and mission critical per se. I try not to just put it out for everyone to have just because stuff happens. It's not it's not a punishment on anybody. I give it to people who need it, and if they show a use case for it, then I certainly authorize it. So that's what that request is for, is to buy laptops. Again, that we'll be able to ensure are up to date and know who's coming into the network. And we'll have it set up with different profiles so that only these devices can come into the network. This is an actual one for us inside here, systems and hardware log management software. So all of the actual devices we have right now generate data uncomprehendable to a person looking at it. There's way too much data coming through as far as log files coming at it. We rely on other software currently, which is antivirus. We have a next-gen firewall. We rely on that to stop anything coming in and hope it's stopping everything from coming in. But I can't see the log files and see what's happening, look for patterns, network ports going down because a UPS went somewhere that's not managed. You name it, it actually looks at it, and all of that log data is getting generated. But if you don't see it or have a way or a tool of actually collecting it and doing something with it intelligently, then you have a bunch of garbage coming in. So this was an ask on the IT from our internal employees, is we need some sort of log management system so we can actually make heads up of what's actually happening and see it and look for a trend coming in or see what's, if there's an issue that we need to address. Next one, again, ransomware, talking about it. So multi-factor authentication is great. That is a first start. That will shut down a lot of stuff coming in. Again, if you download something locally, once you made it in, you're inside the network at that point. So if you were to get something into it, now we have a managed detection and response as well for our antivirus. And so again, we're looking at patterns, what's going on. You know, why is this machine opening up a Word document from PowerShell? Why is it doing that? So it's looking at what the machine's behaving as opposed to, hey, did I just get the latest Windows update for the new latest virus or the latest Loki or whatever whatever the current virus is. All you need to do is change a character in that virus, and suddenly it's a whole new thing that's not been detected yet. So we have again, our I'll call it our antivirus solution is looking for that. But if it's in and we do get encrypted at that point, yes, they're going to stop the threat. They're going to stop that. But at that point, I have potentially ransomed or encrypted files. So there's several solutions on the market that I've been looking at and trying to narrow it down. They're actually priced competitively, and this will actually sit on the, it'll actually sit in the data center at the file level looking for any encryption happening. So when it sees anything take off like that, or if it starts to see a file start to get encrypted, it starts to wake up and say, hey, what's going on? There's a threshold that's set in it so that at some point it becomes aware that, okay, there's multiple files becoming encrypted, and it shuts that machine down, takes it off the network, sets off the lights and bells on IT, text messages, emails, you name it. We take action on it, and again, there's several different versions of it. One of them is running in a backup constantly of the different files, so if I needed to, I could recover the individual files that were ransomed or encrypted, excuse me. The other one we're looking at, the other solution again is, you maybe potentially lose a few that we didn't get back if we didn't have the other brand, per se, brand B of this solution I'm looking at. So we have backups running all the time. We try to make sure we have a decent backup running depending on the criticality of the system we're talking about. But this is just another layer of protection that sits down and covers our file level. And again, that's where everything is kind of stored at that point. And there's maintenance for our replacement CRM that we have. C-Click-Fix is sitting ready to go live. I have a few more pieces to iron out with public services on some software they have just to make sure they're ready to go with it. But that'll be revealed out here. And if you're not familiar with what a citizen request module is, it's actually where you in the city, you're driving through whatever it is, if you see an issue, you report it from there. So this software is very forward-facing. It's very visible to everybody. So if you report a pothole out at Park in Maine and somebody else drives by and sees it, they're actually going to see it on the map that there's something already reported. If the city is not acting on this, this is going to tell on them because it's going to see, you're going to see this thing sitting for a while and it's going to start to age out, and it never disappears, but everybody's going to see it. So the existing system we have, it somewhat works for that matter, but it doesn't integrate with any other software. So when this current work order comes in or somebody sees an issue with it, an email goes to a specific individual. There's a workflow process set up in it, but they get an email. So then if it goes to public services, because they usually get the brunt of these, they have to copy that and then put it into their work order system. So it's very inefficient. The new software I have actually has an integration with their software that writes through it, and then when they close it in their software, it writes back the opposite direction through C-Click-Fix. So we're just starting to scratch the surface with that. Again, it's set up on our side, ready to go. I have a few things to iron out with public services, and that'll be coming forward. But then there's maintenance on that, so that's where that other line you're seeing there. Any questions on any of those items at this point? And I'll jump into the next section.
So when you're upgrading all these softwares or the programs, is there a maintenance program that comes with it?
Yes, that's usually, so once it's done, so like again, the C-Click-Fix, the last item I just talked about, I was able to find some money available, and we're not going to renew one of the softwares that Public Services had, so we use that money as cost savings to get this going. So that moving forward, though, does have a maintenance cost to it. So that's what the majority of.
What's the lifespan of these software? Is it continuously upgrading?
This is going to be continuously, as is a cloud-based software, yes. So we'll always stay the latest, greatest with it, and that's, having maintenance on your software is going to give you the latest version as well, either software assurance or you're entitled to their latest build.
Okay.
Going back to Motorola, is this something that we're married to because we were stuck in a long time ago and there's not a good way to get out of this rut, or is there something better you'd like to get to, and where does that tipping point happen?
So there's another solution, but I don't want to say throw out the baby with the bathwater here. There are other providers out there, but everybody in this area, and this is not the whole reason, but everybody's a Motorola shop in this area. So we have 2 towers right now, fully outfitted with Motorola radios, servers, what have you. To get out from under this, it would be a huge expenditure versus staying in where we are. It's kind of like you're in it at this point. Now it's continuing maintenance. there is another player out there, but we're working on doing a multi-zone integration with Orange County, Orlando, and Reedy Creek right now. And that's something that we just had some USC funding come in for that, and that's also stems back to the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act, meaning that all agencies touching each other need to be able to communicate, and I don't want to have to go look for a channel. I need to be able to touch your primary channel. So this is going to solve that issue. The city of Apopka itself has always been its own island when it comes to the radio system. We had this tower sitting out on Harmon Road. It's a Pyrod 400-foot guide tower out there that it was initially set up just for public service radio. It's growing a little bit with some other hardware put onto it. Of course, Census rides on it for water meter readings. And all of that money going in, the antennas on it, all of the radios inside it, all of the computers, the servers in there. I mean, every 2 years, they're replacing servers in there as part of our SUA that we have with Motorola right now. That is a piece that if something's happening, we are being told by them that something's happening before we actually see an issue. We're getting alerts, so they're on it, notifying us what's going on. They're responding and addressing it. But the biggest issue we have right now is that we are encrypted on our own channel. So anytime we go to give anybody, or if anybody wants to come over, we have to go give them the encryption key. And there's little sharing parties they do every couple of years where they give everyone their keys to make sure they have your actual encryption so they can communicate with you correctly. So with this, the multi-zone that we're looking at, could we integrate, let's say, a Harris solution into it? Potentially, but how much, and again, there's going to be maintenance on that as well. I can certainly have somebody come out from there and get an idea what that would cost, but you're multi-million-dollar just to swap over, including the radios as well. So,
Has anyone reached out to them industry-wide and basically said, hey, are you interested in a buyout? And basically, what's prohibiting this is that other entities are using the Motorola and we're kind of stuck, basically.
I wouldn't say it's prohibited to that. I'm sure there's some interoperability that's there. I've never looked at again, Harris is going to be the biggest one that comes to mind. So,
kind of like PC
potentially
versus
it can
Mac,
be.
and
Yes.
we're kind of stuck in a rut. Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested to see if they themselves would be interested in approaching the people in this region and saying, we've got a better product, we want to help you bridge that gap, and get them to be willing to invest in us a little bit to make that switch, if it'll benefit us in the long run, if it gets a better product. So, I mean, I'm open to that
Okay.
thought if you bring those things to us.
Okay.
Secondly, again, security cameras, you already have the ones you want. You've already researched this out. Are we
Yeah,
getting them?
we've been looking at it for the past 8 months, actually. I'm trying to demo some other cameras, so there's several that we're kind of narrowing it down to. One of them's an Axis. I'll say cheaper. It's right around $1,300 to $1,500, and that was a few months back. So again, it seems like the longer we wait on anything, the camera hardware itself is going up.
And so you're dealing directly with them on a wholesale level versus we're not using a middleman,
No,
someone
this
else
will
who
be
does.
going
Okay.
straight out to cut the middleman out.
Third thing, last thing, AV, noticed on there, you talked about the VFW.
Yep.
And what about in here? Is that part of, I know there were
Okay,
some things you were
so
needing to do
We
here.
are missing, for this council chamber, this is already bought and paid for. Well, it's not paid for. The money's already here for it. It's already ready to go. We were supposed to have been completely up and functioning by, I think, the end of April. However, there are two crest-run items that are missing from this solution. So AVI-SPL is the integrator putting this on. They are missing two key items that they cannot start the implementation here until they have everything. So that's what we're waiting on at this, that's where we're still at waiting. So it's already a system ready to go. Cameras on each of the back corner of the room, one in the center, one up front facing back to the actual podium here. The booth itself is going to be the old, the old greeting booth that moved under Mayor Kilsheimer. So right now it's a closet on the far north by the elevator. So that's where the control booth will be for it. Fire will be run from that side coming across. We're looking at replacing the lighting in here as well as changing the color in the back, the sconces to make it more, habitable to actually stream in. Because right now we have a really weird orange hue that goes in here. So there's a lot of stuff that's being done separate of the actual AV upgrade here. But, there'll be a screen for the actual public on this side, so they're not having to break their neck looking over here. There will be a screen on the back wall, just for you all to see a larger one, plus you'll actually have your monitors in front of you that'll be on top of the actual podium, or the dais up there. They'll be on this side. We'll have the ability to reserve capacity for over there if the press ever needs it. So I'm excited about it, but at the same time, it's taking way longer than it should have. I really hoped we were going to be up on it. So we still have our ad hoc system back from COVID that we threw in the back of the room thinking it's temporary. So the the VFW system, every time I go there, this past weekend I went there and just, you cross your fingers, hoping it's going to come on, and sure enough, after about 3 minutes, the projector went off, the bulbs, lights flashing, time to replace your bulb. I don't have a spare bulb Friday or Saturday at, 2 in the afternoon, so panic sets in. I go to get the other one to fire up. It's completely dead, running the ladder around, going up and down, trying to figure out what's going on. Finally, I tricked the initial one. I just changed the time on the actual bulb and say, oh, sure, I just replaced you, and, keep my fingers crossed that it's going to run for the next 6 or 8 hours, however long I needed it to. The audio system as well is a closed system. There's no additional room for growth on that one. And it really needs some assistance. We get called over there quite a bit that either, hey, it's not working, the mic's not working, we can't figure out where this is running from here. And one of the issues we have with that is that if we don't maintain it, or if we're not there to ensure that it's not being abused, then mics get dropped all the time. They can walk away. I've had remotes from the overhead projectors just completely disappear, and have to replace, the remotes for it. And I'm sure maybe it wasn't on purpose, but it's just one of those deals that now what am I going to do? Okay, I have to run up the ladder for now and push the button. So we make do with what we have to make sure everything's working over there. So it does need a facelift. There's issues with the HDMI on the main screen cutting out sometimes. It's just, that was my ask if we can have it. If it gets cut out, then so be it. But I'm letting you know there is an issue over there.
So the two missing elements are funded, we just
100%.
aren't able to get them?
100%.
Okay.
I'm waiting on it to come in. I got another invoice from them, which I said, oh, great, hey, are they coming? So our project manager, I sent an email this morning saying, hey, now that I have this, does that mean the other two parts are coming in? So he's looking on that because he said he didn't hear any word that they were here. So
So it's basically supply chain.
yes, I hate to say that. I wish I didn't have to say that, but I have no control on this at this point.
But
And
yeah,
as far-
it'll be a complete refresh along with the audio
Podium's going to be
visual.
replaced. There'll be
Yeah.
an ADA podium that goes up and down for anybody in a wheelchair. It'll be wide enough to wheel up under it. So it's a full system. I'm hoping we thought of everything for the amount of money that we had to do it.
Well, let's just hope they get that before what we already have is antiquated. And that happens fast with electronics, so.
Well-
As far as the VFW, is that just mainly the audio? I know there's an elaborate system. Is it that it's so elaborate nobody knows how to use it, or is it broken?
No, you
or-
can kind of play on it. It's because it's open to the public and everyone will go up and kind of push the buttons. At some point, it gets abused, not on purpose, but because you don't know what you're doing and you start pushing buttons on stuff, that sometimes doesn't do the best for it.
Yep. So are we
Hard,
replacing things, or
everybody-
are we fixing
Replacing.
things? Okay.
No, this is a replace. This is a move. We're going to get the projectors out, put newer projectors in. It would be a lift for it, similar to this, but not on that scale.
Commissioner Smith.
I noticed that some of the things that you are including in your budget will cross over into some other departments, so we're not going to see a duplication in other departments for these same items.
I wish somebody would put some of my stuff in their line. I have all there in my budget, so.
All right, well, when I saw the staff laptops and docking stations, I just want to make sure that that's only going to appear in your budget, and they're not going to be requesting the same thing in their budget.
What I
And-
have is strictly for the requests that we're doing, as well as maintenance on existing hardware or software that has been deemed IT, you pay the maintenance on this. So nobody should have any of the stuff I have on here.
All
And
right,
if they do, then I want it.
you want it, okay, sounds good.
So you'll notice, Commissioner Neston.
No, finish your thought.
So there are a few, you'll notice some of the lines, 5,200 looks like it got pretty big from last year. There's it's probably over 100% higher. I don't, yes, I do. No, I don't. It's a larger ask this year, and it's not so much a larger ask under 5,200. It's because of the items in it. So traditionally, I would have put police department laptops. Again, this is going to be the third cycle of laptops to get them out of their old Dells they have. Those normally I would have put under 6,400 when our capital items were at $1,000. Because the threshold for the city has changed to 5,000, individually, those don't meet the capital cost for it. So those are falling under 5,200. So there was like an $75,000 or an $80,000 increase in that line. The laptops I discussed for the remote users, the remote access portion, that's also under 5,200. What else do I have? Video cameras is under 5,200. Some UPSs that I didn't have budgeted last year. We're trying to knock out some issues with our data center. We have UPSs standing up, some of our critical servers over there, that when the generator at the station over there does its genset test on Wednesday morning, No rhyme or reason, it will shut down 2 or 3 of our servers running on there, and those are hosting virtual machines. So we need to go to a different style UPS for that. That's always on. Again, the building is really a basket case for electricity over there, but there's not much I can do other than try putting a different UPS to keep those servers up on it. 4,600, again, some of the things that weren't there I talked about. OpenGov module, the software we're looking at now, that the maintenance for that has been in my 4,600 line. Tower maintenance was an addition, the cloud replication, MFA maintenance, and the increase on the radio system is under there. So those are some of the higher pieces that went up under that one.
Bob, can I ask you a question
Sure.
Regarding our tower on Harmon property?
Yep.
Where are we with that? I mean, because I keep hearing it's on its last leg, we're getting another one. Where are we in that?
So that tower, as it sits now, again, it's the manufacturer that was a Pyrod tower at the time. They said it was a 50-year tower, galvanized steel.
Right.
You know, depending on what it looks like, does it mean you're going to get 50 years out of it? You won't. So built back in 89, so where we at? We're sitting at 30, I don't know, 33, 34 years, somewhere in there. It's not falling down, but it's doing what it wasn't meant to do, and that's to house the larger antennas from our cellular carriers. So the tower has been modified multiple times, strengthened to allow for such additional load to go on. And it's not the weight of the items on there pushing down on the tower, it's the wind load from the wind hitting it. So that's the calculation that has to go in. So anytime high winds come into that thing, especially that style tower, it's going to move on you a little bit. It's going to actually kind of flex up there, and this is a tall tower. It's probably one of the tallest ones in the area that I've seen around here. So the tower itself is not falling down. It needs to be certainly inspected, you know, if it's going to be set up for however long we see it. It certainly needs to be repainted again so that we can stay within the FAA requirements of during the daytime, you know, your tower must be either lit up or it needs to be painted red or red and white leveled up for it. Currently, we have paint on it. The paint's being pretty faded, so it probably needs to be painted again, and also that provides a little bit of corrosion resistance. Now, there's so much guy wire or waveguide running up that, antennas for some of the carriers going up there, that you would never be able to touch every piece of that metal on that tower. So it's tough to say that's going to fix everything.
So
So-
what are we talking about in keep to bringing it up to date and
Well,
making
there
it?
is no more bringing it up to date. It's up to date, and just nobody else gets on it.
Okay,
You can't do anything else with this
Well-
one. There's no more future growth on it. It is where it
between
is.
securing it, painting it, what are we talking about with that tower?
Cost-wise for that, the painting's about $35,000. The maintenance contract annually would be about $20,000 for them to come out and look at it. And, you know, us keeping up with the appearance of the building. I mean, it's a concrete building. It's not going anywhere. The generator is pretty old. That may be something we look at, replacing that at some point in the near future, next few years. But, you know, the radios inside, those were replaced when the new tower went up back in 20, I think that was when it was completed, end of 19, beginning of 20. So the north tower got the equipment that was at the Harmon tower, just so they get the new stuff, and they actually want to get everything programmed, and everything else is programmed the existing. So the Harmon radios are actually at the north tower currently. So that, again, is the same style tower. It's a galvanized guide tower. Losing my train of thought here on that.
Okay, Commissioner Nesta?
So, and just to kind of reiterate, the Harmon Tower, we haven't had that inspected in any capacity. Is there requirements from any type of overseeing?
There is a best practice. I don't have the information with me. I had a guide. I was prepared to discuss at length. I want to say it was the end of last year as far as the Harmon Tower, if we were going to move it, you know, when it needs to be inspected, how often it should be inspected. But there are industry standards on when it should be inspected. And again, after heavy windstorms coming through, especially that tower of that age, that height, and what's on it, should certainly have had some attention. So that's why I'm kind of pushing hard to make sure we get funding in there to have that done. And then, you know, I've got AT&T that was really hounding us pretty heavy for the last 3 years and wanting to get on for their first net in this area. And there's no room for them to get on that tower. There was an independent survey that they actually had another engineering company come in and just said, you know, you're kind of pushing your limits. So they offered to build another tower. You know, there's multiple ways that could go if we were replacing it, looking to do that. But as it sits now, it's not going to fall over unless there is a catastrophic storm hitting it, somebody hits the guy wire from a car crash somehow, just right through that fence. A natural disaster, unforeseeable for us, would be the only way it should come down at this point. It's not.
So theoretically, that could, if we get, '05, we had 4 or 5 hurricanes come back to back to back. We should be inspecting that every single hurricane,
It should be inspected annually, absolutely,
at the very least annually.
yes.
And this will be the first one we've ever done.
This is going to be the first one that I know of since it's come over to us.
Wow.
So I've learned a lot. Again, I wasn't the tower guy up until I was. And so you get a lot of information from talking to other tower operators, Orange County, Lake County, Seminole County. How are you maintaining your towers? Do you, when you build a new tower, do you have a third party come in and build it for you, and then you just ride on it for free because it's your property, or do you keep the tower internally? Trying to figure out what they're doing and who are you having do your inspections? How often are you doing it? And I know Seminole County, they were replacing their towers after, it was either 25 or 30 years, they did 8 replacements, and that was a pretty quick replacement time turnaround, in my opinion. But again, I'm not a tower expert by any means, and I don't confess to be. So from reading up on it, and again, talking to individuals who do just that, that's a function of IT that got incorporated into it. So there are, that is a job in itself as far as a radio position. That is the information I'm getting for it.
And it was my understanding that that was kind of a grandfathered in height, that we can't ever build that again. If we move that from where it's at, we could never get that height again.
I don't know that that is an issue, whether it was or grandfathered. I don't think we would have to go near that height at this point if we ever decided to move it because of our North Tower now coverage we have. So there was a discussion at one point, it was going to be moved over for a new location, and we had to do a site survey because we have to make sure, first of all, are we going to have the coverage we have now? We can't get worse coverage than what we have. So Motorola comes out, does their actual coverage survey, come back with a presentation and said, okay, we only need to be at 350 feet and we'll get the same, if not better coverage, showing better coverage on certain areas that we didn't have it before. So it doesn't have to be as high as it is. It just happened to be that was where we are. And that one, you could pretty much go coast to coast with it at one point. So it has been much more tuned down a little bit of power turned off, and more heavy aiming of the beam, if you will, so that it's not just broadcasting out for everybody, because we can start stepping on other municipalities because everybody's sharing certain frequencies. So, some of that'll change also with the next year's request that I'll have. And again, it's the existing radios they're using, the 7000s, their Motorola radios, are in need of replacement. They're going end of life at the end of 23. So my capital improvement plan would start next year, and then looking at either doing a 3 or a 5 year lease, or not lease, but basically finance these radios and do a facelift for public safety. And this would be their next gen radios, which are, for lack of a better term, it's like a smart radio. It has a screen on it. They're hardened. You can see the other units moving around on it. It's got LTE coverage on it, so I can be up in Wisconsin and, hey, what's going on? I hear you perfectly loud. So with technology changing all the time, there may be a point where we don't need a tower nowhere near that height. But currently that tower is what it is because of when it was built back in the day. There was nothing else out here.
And it still adds value. There's no reason to say this is an antiquated system or we need to get an upgrade. It just needs to be maintained properly.
It just needs to be maintained so it doesn't come down or fall, and then you ask me, how did you not see this? So
Sure.
That's truly what needs to be done. And so knowing now that I have data that I can give you and show you that, yes, it was inspected, it was a freak accident, or the wire rusted through, or a wild gopher chewed through the guide wire or something. Anything stupid, if it's going to happen, it can happen.
Sure.
But, I don't expect it to happen.
For the VFW, their upgrades, what's that total cost that we're putting into that?
The cost quoted when we looked at it probably 6 to 7 months ago was $90,000.
Yeah.
And I can't say you that price will stay the same. I would expect it's probably going to be 10 to 15% higher at this time. And this is strictly up to the council if this is the direction we want to go on it. If that's something that has to get cut, I'll let you make that choice.
And then in reference to the chamber being upgraded, we have 98%, 95% of what's needed to start.
Yep.
Would it make sense to start that process sooner rather than later?
So they test everything. They mock up the entire system in their environment and verify that everything's working, smoke test it, make sure nothing's going to die. So they have the entire system set up in their environment before they'll bring it in and just start putting parts and pieces and go, oh, hey, look at that doesn't fit. Or it didn't turn on, or something happened to it. So they won't start it until they have that hardware in hand.
Okay. All right, I'm good.
Just one other thing. Is there anything else department-wide that you can see that we're kicking a can down the road that's going to be hard for people that follow us? Are we set up for replacement, for things like that? I just want to think in the long term.
Hardware size on the IT side, we are. There are some police and fire, things that need to happen. There's a CAD system that we need to, I say a unified CAD system that we need to look at getting onto it. Currently, the police department's running over off Seminole counties, and I'm certainly not going to force them to get off of that system if that's what they want to stay on, but our fire department runs on its own CAD. And that kind of got dumped on them because of a failed solution and integration back in 2013. The company decided it wasn't going to promote that software any further. It decided that wasn't going to be its flagship. But we have what's behind curtain number 3 over here, which is another product. That product was being used by Ocoee and Winter Garden. It's called CTS America, and it's called SmartCop. Well, the fire department's using SmartCop as their CAD, and there's a fire piece for it, but it's not a very robust CAD whatsoever. I think we're the only ones using it. So as far as the fire side, there's no integration to the other agencies around. It really needs some attention.
So do we need to set up incremental steps to be there when we need to be there, rather than it suddenly hitting and
I'm
being
hoping that this is in somebody's budget and they're going to come up here and ask for it from you. I'm hoping that's what's going to happen.
So this would be, because this is fire, it should be something that will be in their budget versus IT.
They're buying the actual, I'm sure the maintenance will somehow slide back in because I have all their other maintenance for ESO and every other piece they have, I believe. So it'll start to come back over. But that's, the meat and potatoes of my maintenance, either 3,400 or 4,600 is software for the entire city. It's not the IT department kicking up that. I mean, I don't use that software, but they got to have the tools to do their job.
Okay, yeah, I just for all of our budgeting, for me this year especially, I just want to make sure that we're leaving things in a healthy way, in a good way going forward, so, okay.
And now for my PowerPoint. Just kidding.
Thank you. All right.
Thank
Next
you,
up,
Robert.
Chief Wylam.
Okay, let me go back. Reset. Why can't I go back? I hate this. There it is.
All right, good evening, mayors, commissioners. I'm here tonight to present the fire department's 2022, 2023 budget. I do have a PowerPoint after this, so we'll run through this basic part first, but then have some more explanation behind it. But overall, this page is our overall look at the fire department as a whole. There is a total of 17% increase, some in certain lines. More than others. Like Rob mentioned, the operational side of things has significantly gone up this year just based on a lot of different costs of different things. Sounds funny, but even bandages have gone up substantially, so certain things we're looking at. And also some big ticket items that we're looking at for the future. So the increases, again, then they get more in detail when we get to each specific division, but kind of the big overall ones we're asking for this year. 6 new firefighter positions, that's going to be for manning for station 2 and 3, for engine 2 and 3. Like Rob just mentioned, our computer-aided dispatcher CAD system that we're going to be requesting. Replacement fire truck, we're going to do one of those each next couple of years. And 2 replacement ambulances. Again, this is a cyclical thing, but again, also with our accident we had this year with another one, we're going to be replacing another one. And paramedic school replacement. Or, I'm sorry, reimbursement. So I'm just going to get right into Fire Chiefs Division 2110. Again, this went up just 9%. Some of the things included are some of our software-related stuff. Vector Solutions, which we'll get more into as well, is a scheduling software that we actually implemented this year. It's just a continuation of that system, that it helps us organize lots of different things as far as our scheduling is concerned, time trades, time off, and things like that. PS Track software is a asset management software. One of the things I really have been trying to do with our depreciation schedules and things like that is get on a systematic approach to not just arbitrarily saying we need to replace this because, if we start being able to track some of our assets, rolling assets, and things like that with software like this, then I think we're going to have a much better view of things and educated decisions. Another thing PS Track does as well is our narcotics and things like that, some of our controlled substances and tracking with that sort of thing. And a big one in this division, of course, is the CAD, which we'll get in more detail when we get to the PowerPoint. Fire suppression, again, 27% increase, again, because of a lot of different costs of certain things. Again, the most important being the addition of the 6 new firefighter positions, replacement of a fire engine, replacement of a CAD Cascade fill station at Station 1. It's time for us to get a new one of those. Set of extrication tools, spreaders, cutters, and rams. Replacing all of our thermal imaging cameras. Again, like Commissioner Bankson said just a minute ago, technology, it's constantly evolving, or it's something we identified that we need to replace. Digital fire extinguisher training system is something for our PRs. It's a system when the lieutenant mayor goes out and teaches the public with fire extinguishers. It's an electronic system now. It's safer and integrated and something that he requested. EMS, again, up 11%. The two big ticket items for this, again, is the 2 replacement ambulances and paramedic school reimbursement. And again, we're going to get into more detail when we get to the PowerPoints. So I need to go back to homepage. It's on homepage, Jess? There it is. Again, to kind of give just a year-end summary, like we always do with every budget year, is our call volume, as you can see, is still trending up. 2020 was that slump because it was actually a normal thing because of the COVID pandemic we dealt with. So we saw that's a kind of natural thing. But as a whole, we are still trending up with our call volumes. That's the actual report we get from ESO, which is our reporting system to kind of show you 82% still EMS, 18% fire-related calls for 2021. Again, calls for service, each station's broken down there. So we had 3,319 calls at Station 1, 1,700 calls at Station 2, 1,300 calls at Station 3, 1,272 at Station 4, 1,143 at Station 5, and 406 at Station 6.
Is this slide in our packet?
Yeah, because I don't see it.
I don't see it online either.
It just has,
Just go to the next slide, I think it'll be.
Okay.
where is it?
This
It's not in there, but
It's not in there?
no, it's not in there.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it is.
Wait a minute.
But basically, with that call volume we just discussed, calls per shift at each station. Station 1 still with 9.1. Station 2, 4.7. Station 3s and 4s right around the same at 3.6, 3.48. Station 5, 3.13. And Station 6 just over a call per shift. Again, just showing the percentages of each station. Station 1 is running 36% of our call volume. And you can see the rest. I won't read down there for you, but it's
He said to put it in, what did you say, Robert? Did you say do it in sync?
He's saying doing it a good rigor, like sync your iPad, but it's the same one. That one's still not in there.
Okay, and sync this. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so then go back. I'll go back and open it, right? Oh. Here we are. Oh, here. There you are. Okay. All right, thank you.
Our response times, again, average response time for the first unit on scene is 4 minutes and 42 seconds. This is an aggregate of fire and EMS calls. Again, and travel time and turnout time is what equals response time. So ISO Class 1, 44 this year in the state of Florida. Nationwide is 459, which still puts us in the top 0.9% in the country. Again, something I look at every year, and every year they put out the study, U.S. Fire Department profiles. This one was released in December of 2021, so just a few months ago. Basically kind of gets us a national average of what we look at in the fire service and things that we're looking at. So the last 5 years, average rate per thousand in population for the nation is 1.71 firefighters per thousand. So not much change from last year. When we look at our statistical information and our data and our population densities, population, this is the data we get from community development each year. Population, city of Apopka is 56,000 and growing, we know that. 35 square miles, so our population density is 1595 per square mile. We have total personnel of 113 currently this year, which kept us right at the 1.99 per thousand. 3.17 per mile, so roughly one firefighter for every 502 in population. When we compare ourselves, in the red is actually includes our contract area, so it adds in the population in that Orange County Station 29 contract area, as well as the square mileage. And comparing to the other municipalities, you can just run down the Ocoee, Winter Garden, Maitland, Winter Park, Orange County, and Orlando. We are right in line with a lot of other departments because we added those 6 people last year. That's what was able to keep us moving in that right trend, moving us in the right direction. With that, some other statistical information from the study. Based on our population from 50,000 to 100,000, these are the average throughout the nation of numbers of pumpers, other suppression units, aerial apparatus, and stations throughout the country. So the average is 4.53. Currently, we have 6 stations. 2.26 other, so brush trucks, and our squad 5 counts as one of those as well. Aerial, 1.13, and we're going to be talking about that coming up in a little bit, in the addition of an aerial coming in the future. And stations per thousand, again, 4.53, and we're currently sitting at 6. Some of the revenue, just want to talk about that. We are implementing several different things, and I think the big thing that we're trying to emphasize here is user-based fees and user-based type stuff. As we know, when we changed to Change Healthcare this past current year, we actually had 4,000 of the 9,000 that were billable calls. Sometimes we run refusals. Some of those are fire-related, of course, that don't generate things like this. But again, we're right at that national average of 63% being ALS, 37% being DLS. So 2021, we collected 1.2 million. And because of the participation in the PEMT programs, which we've discussed before, we actually were able to recuperate another 144,000. Projected for this next upcoming year, 1.4 million with additional $200,000.
What's PMT?
PEMT is Public Emergency Medical Transportation Program. It's I don't remember, I had a big presentation on it probably about a year ago, just discussing in the MCO, and it's Medicaid, basically, Medicaid beneficiaries. It's a way that we can actually go back and recuperate some of our costs now for running calls on those patients. And we have to, there's a number of steps we go through, and we have to qualify for that. So because of basically how we report things now, we're able to capture that, recuperate some of that money as well.
So when we collect this revenue, where does it go?
It goes into the general fund, and that's something, you know, that we are.
We don't have a
funded.
dedicated fund for the fire department.
It all goes into the general fund, but how we track it is basically how we can keep track of that sort of thing. And some of the other stuff we're going to discuss coming up as well. That's why I'm presenting it, because I know.
So meaning it's not reserved funds for
Not
fire use
necessarily.
only? It just, okay.
So when you get audited on what this fund, do you have a separate, do you keep something separate for this?
There's a revenue line.
Yeah.
So anything that's collected, so it's captured, if that makes sense, or earmarked as a revenue for fire billing, basically, and then different things like that. So it is captured.
Okay.
Again, another revenue is our Orange County contract. Since 2019, we've been doing that. This year, we're collected for $556,000. Again, that is also captured and, you know, earmarked for, but it still goes into the general fund. You know, one thing that we were able to take advantage is getting 100% of this contract before, which in the last 3 years, originally the contract was for 75%, so we were able to work that out, and it's about close to $400,000 that luckily we were able to make sure that we're capturing as well. Again, this year, the past few months, we've been going over our newly adopted fee schedule. I'm very excited about that getting implemented in October. A conservative estimate right now is another $300,000 we're going to be able to generate with just our normal inspections. They're, you know, $66 per business, 2,500 businesses. That's $178,000 plus new construction coming in, and some of the fees we're going to be able to collect with that. So it's good to see. And now I'm presenting all this because I'm going to ask you for a lot of money. So that's why I'm making sure we go over all this. Vector Solutions, again, we talked about before in the highlights. It is personnel tracking. It's fully automated now. The guys get text messages and can respond via phone, whether they get called for overtime or even captures our time trades, and it's a really useful system. You know, it's something that, you know, we used to do everything on calendars and write stuff down, and it was in SharePoint, and things were just all over the place, but this tracks it all in one location. So we implemented it this year. This is just to continue on for the foreseeable future. Again, the PS Tracks is, again, an asset management. It's one of the top ones that's used in the fire service. Anything from vehicles, stations, equipment, supplies, controlled substances, things like that. And kind of like Rob was talking earlier, I'm glad he said it, you know, it's $43,000 to implement this year, but hopefully he takes over the yearly maintenance fees from now on. But thanks for the offer. But it is $15,000 as the maintenance from year after. Big thing, again, is the computer-aided dispatcher, CAD. That's, like Rob said, it's something that's we've been wanting to do for the past few years. There's a $258,000 implementation fee, setup fee, and then $85,000 yearly maintenance fee, and that's for 10 years. CADs these days cost anywhere from 1 to 1.5 upwards of $2 million. And a lot of times when you buy something like that, again, technology, it's obsolete after 3 years. With the program like this, we're going to have the updates. They're going to control a lot of different stuff, be able to come in and improve and modify things that we see fit. Getting into the suppression, again, the big ask and what we need this year is additional 6 firefighters. This is, again, comes from the community development. Shows our current, projects that are under construction, and these are residential dwelling units. So currently we have under construction or almost complete construction, 2,900 142 dwelling units. And we know that our persons per household is 2.79, so an increase coming in this year of 8,000 people we're expecting. With that being said, this is what we want to see over the next 3 to 4 years. Implementation. As you can see, here, Engine 1 is who we actually were able to add the manpower for last year, and also the district chief. The District 2 is now in play. So that's our 36 people assigned to each shift. Minimum manning is now 31. This year, we want to go up to 38 people per shift, with minimum manning being 33, that allowing for our additional personnel on Engine 2 and Engine 3. 2024, you'll see multiple things here. When we add, Ambulance 6 is coming on board. We know that. Station 6 is being built this year. But also, because of that, we're now going to start getting over a threshold of how many people we need to allow off per shift. So that's an additional PTO person. And also continuing with adding next year Engine 4 personnel and future 2025 Engine 5 and Quint 6. So having a stepped approach to adding these personnel where we need them. This does not include Station 7. And that's a big thing. You know, this is our map also from our community development. You can see Station 6's area right now is definitely heavily under construction. What's starting now is obviously where Station 7 is going to go. So next 2 or 3 years, we're going to be talking about programs to implement and get that up and running as well. So all that personnel we talked about before does not include opening of Station 7. Again, our depreciation schedule for suppression shows this year we actually have ordered this engine as the replacement for Engine 11. It is on the way. It's under construction right now. This is the Engine 51 is the pumper we're requesting this year for $800,000. And then next year, we're going to be adding an additional engine. The nice thing about this engine this year, now that is actually ordered and already being built, all of our front-run engines will now be Rosenbauer, so all will be the same model, and we'll start replacing them as we need to.
I'm sorry, repeat that again? What were you saying about the engine that you're replacing one, 800,000?
Yes, the one is ordered right now from last year.
Okay.
It takes over a year for them to actually be built and things like that. And ambulances are even worse. We're going to get to that in a minute. It's incredible. But this one we replaced this year is what we're asking for, Engine 51.
Engine 51.
Yes, ma'am. And next year, and it's kind of confusing, we're going to replace this engine, but what is being built now will go to Engine 4 because that's a front run. The ones that are below are reserve pumpers. But looking at, we're systematically approaching or replacing engines as we need. So this year, in the budget, is a replacement of Engine 51, which is $800,000. We're also asking for SCBA bottle compressor and fill station for Station 1. Again, that's just something that's where it's plenty of wear and tear. And we're also looking at putting that down at the putting one down at the training center. That's where a lot of times those bottles are, they use that a lot. And also with our program that we're going to hopefully get implemented next year with the recruit training facility. So it's a win-win by adding on, additional cascade system.
I'm sorry, what did you say that you're starting a training program?
Yes, it was the presented on it a couple weeks ago about recruit training facility that we're looking at for state appropriations money so that we can make.
I've asked for money out of the state legislature. They've got some additional appropriations, and hopefully we'll get some money. We've asked for $750,000 to help to upgrade our training center to where we can start offering classes, not only for to get people
New firefighters.
yeah.
Also in this budget is our hydraulic or extrication tools. We need another set of those. Thermal imaging cameras, like I mentioned earlier, $25,000. This will replace all of our existing thermal imaging cameras, get it, it's the newest technology and things.
And what will these do over what you've had?
Again, just the technology, it's amazing over the years what's happened. It used to be really a lot of its size. Now it's like the spy world, everything gets kind of smaller. But also what you're able to view through that imager, if that makes sense. And a lot of the technology now, you can hit a button and it'll tell you the coldest spot in the room and then the hottest spot in the room. And a lot of times that's useful information for us to see, just to see. In simple, you smell electrical, well, where's it coming from? And it'll, you know, it's a lot of different technologies and things like that.
So it
So-
will help you see people?
Oh, absolutely.
It'll help you
Yeah,
see,
search.
will it help you see, like, let's say, chemicals were being stored, something that would be more dangerous? Is this better than what we've had in
Yeah,
that sense?
again, it is definitely better than what we had. Anything with technology, you know, we can look at, you know, not that you couldn't with older models, but you can actually look at a tank and see whether it's full or not, a propane tank or things like that. Obviously, the heat signature of a victim, you know, that labels, we can call it spidey sense, but you can look through a room very quickly and, you know, that within a degree of difference, that's the technology differences now. It used to be with 5, or, you know, there's a lot of different technology that comes with it.
So how many do you get with $25,000?
We're gonna be able to replace roughly, trying to count. How many? 9, yeah, 9 or 10, at least. Yeah. Rental gear, turnout gear, that's something, Hippler was stating about. Whoa. I don't know what I did. Because of the supply chain and the amount of times it's taking things to turn around, it's something we actually were looking at with new hires. When we're ordering, even when we hire someone and they don't start for another 2 months, it was crazy to even get their gear in time for orientation. So something we wanted to implement is rental gear, so they have something on day one. They're able to, thanks. Thank you. I guess I'll still pay for the maintenance now. But that way, you know, this is going to allow for we're actually in the middle of doing a hiring process now. We're actively looking to fill our vacancies, and then when we add these 6 additional people on in the future, this is going to be enough for this year to allow that rental gear to be delivered on day one, so that they have gear to work from day one.
So rentals,
Sorry.
so rentals just temporary until they
Yes, sir.
get their gear, okay.
Yep. Again, EMS division, the 2 big things we're adding, again, are the additional ambulances. We have, believe it or not, this is crazy, the bottom one replaced 1920. We're still waiting on that ambulance to be delivered. I never in my life have seen where an ambulance takes longer than a fire truck. They're saying 500 to 600 days for an ambulance. In fact, the one we ordered this year, we had to sign a intent to procure just to lock it in place because there's no Fords anywhere. We're still waiting on our replacement district vehicle, or our new district vehicle, actually. We literally got the last one in the country. We got informed the other day by Charlie from Fleet. He's literally like, we had to beg, borrow, steal, but we got it secured. So ambulances are taking quite a bit of time to replace. Also, the one that was an accident, we did get word that it was totaled. So there's, you know, going to be some insurances monies, but not nearly enough to cover a full replacement ambulance. So, but with that, 2 replacement ambulances, $733,000 for both those. Those are fully equipped, stretcher, monitor, you know, all the bells and whistles that go with an ambulance.
733 each or total?
Total.
Oh, there it is.
And a big one this year, we've added $130,000 $1,000 for paramedic school reimbursement. This is going to cover, currently have 7 people in medic school right now. This is going to allow them to be reimbursed for going this year. Also, our 9 new hires that we have added this last year, when part of it, they're contractually now obligated to go to paramedic school within 3 years. So this is going to allow us to reimburse those individuals, and it's something that we want to continue in the future.
Would it be cost-effective to have a school set up or an instructor come here and provide that paramedic,
Yeah, that's something
Training?
we're definitely looking at. In-house program.
an in-house program, rather than them having to go to a program?
Yeah, we've done that in the past. In fact,
You have?
I was part of an in-house program when I went to medic school. I'm not going to tell you when, because but, and then we've done recently with another group that was hired on in 17, right after that, we did another in-house program. But that's certainly always something, even though we're only sending, 9 is a big number, which is
It is a
good,
big number.
But if we can also, with another neighboring agency to increase those numbers, 'cause a lot of times schools won't come until there's enough need, if that makes sense, to show that need's there. So, something we're certainly looking at.
What's the price per person of this school?
Right around $8,200. So if you're looking at, 81 something, that gets you your right where we're at with the 130. It's about 16 people we're looking at sending.
So are we budgeting for all the new hires as well, or just the ones that are going through it currently?
Right, this is for both. So this year, right, and we want to use it as a reimbursement program. It's kind of what we've done traditionally with training. You go to the class, you show your that you obviously you paid for it, and that you passed. We're looking at the different incentives with that and things like that, but then it's reimbursed to them. So the 7 people who are in this year, this is absolutely going to reimburse them. And also the 9 we just hired this previous year are also, again, obligated now contractually to go to medic school, so we want to cover them as well.
So that's 16, and then we're adding 6 more to that, correct, with new hires this year coming up?
Yes, that's separate, yeah. This is medic school. Yeah, so the six that are coming up will be in next year's budget.
You currently have
Which
8
really, it's
at
actually going to be more than
paramedic
that. It's
school?
going to be, we have 7 people in school right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is to reimburse them. This is to reimburse the past effectively.
Yes,
Okay.
and who we hired this year. Yes.
But they also have an obligation to stay with us.
Correct.
For, is it 3 years?
Yes, 3 years.
3 years, yeah, so.
So they have to do it within 3 years?
No,
They-
if they have to stay with us
yes.
3 years after we've paid for it.
Right, yeah, they have 3 years to start medic school, and then once we reimburse them, they're contractually obligated. We're still looking at, it might be 3, might be 5, depending on how, it swings, but so you have to go within 3 years of starting. So if you start August 1st of this year, you have until August 1st to start school of 3 years from now, so 2025. Does that make sense?
And then if they do quit, get fired, whatever it may be, within that 3-year, 5-year period, whatever is landed on, is it they owe that full amount, or is it like a prorated amount? The first year they owe X, the second year they owe X?
Right, it's prorated, even if,
Okay.
we even have it now with bunker gear. It's because the cost of all this stuff, and, and other agencies do this all the time, where they'll have someone start, you pay for the bunker gear, and then 2 years down the road, they leave. Well, we've invested a lot of time and money and, training and things like that, so it's a prorated thing, yes.
Okay.
With that, can I answer any questions, or?
Yeah, I've got a few more questions here. I would just want to start, though, by saying that was the most amazing demonstration of honor and brotherhood, and I was so proud of you guys, and I know Austin's proud. So thank you. Thank you for doing that. That did something for our community, I believe. So again, just going back to the personnel question, so are we on point to advance towards the goal of the issue about making sure we have enough firefighters per apparatus? Are we just keeping up with what we already have, or are we incrementally making steps to move forward?
No, we're-
Again, thinking the long term, are we positioning ourselves to get to the goals that we want to do, want to be at?
Yeah, I believe by this systematic approach and adding as, you know, as we're growing. And, you know, it might be next year if I see the growth is 16,000 people versus 8, I'm gonna come ask for those, make sure. And that, you know, looking at those, that's why I look at that NFPA study every year, to see where we're at, you know, and comparing not just on a national level, but regional level. 1.99, 1.8, it's a tool that guides us as administration to say, okay, this is where we need to be, you know, obviously. And again, you know, looking at the growth each year, you know, I mean, that's and I think we're well on our way, especially, you know, again, adding additional station, that's gonna be another group of 15 individuals we're gonna have to add, plus people with time off. So it's, as we grow, it's gonna be, you know, big asks.
So we're growing not just with growth, but we're also gaining so that we get to the mark that we want to be, basically.
Yes, and again, because again, at the end of Station 6 coming on board, adding additional personnel there, adding that extra person that we're gonna have to add with that.
And I thought that's what I saw where you were laying out the years going forward, but, okay. Response times, are we increasing, decreasing, or just remaining a constant?
So,
Is
our
there anything there?
first 2 units, we seem to be doing well, you know, and that's kind of, again, the reason why I look at, you know, as a systematic approach. Those second 2 units, now, we all know driving down 441 isn't a leisurely stroll anymore, especially going from the east side to the west side. It's taking, you know, just generally longer to get places. So that's why I want to also, you know, start adding those individuals. So and we got to look at the most calls run. So that's why Engine 1 obviously was this year. 2 and 3 are our second most run calls. And density, you know, you look at that map, 1, 2, and 3 are the densest areas of our region right now. 4, 6, and of course with the growth coming for 7 eventually, adding those personnel on as they come about. So we want to make sure that we're still not just that first 2 unit, but the guys and girls have what they need when they get on scene. You know?
And that, again, as you said, that helps us when we're thinking about zoning decisions to make sure we're not getting to a density that you
Right.
can't get through.
Right.
And that's going to end up being response time, and that's lives.
And you just remind me, when we add Station 7, we're going to have to place a second tower at Station 5 with the crew. So that's a whole nother, just because of travel times and things like that. So that's something, it's in a CIP, and that's things that are coming rapidly in the future.
And are the impact fees, which are supposed to help us for the future growth, so it doesn't fall back on people who have basically already paid for the infrastructure, are they keeping pace with where we need to be?
Yeah, you know, and that's something we always constantly reevaluate, and more of a, you know, citywide study and things like that. But for the time being, you know, it's helping a lot with Station 6, for sure.
Okay. As far as apparatus, I know you're going over those replacements, but is there anything that's going to mount up to a point where we're keeping up now, but we're going to get behind in the future? Or is our planned replacement sufficient for what you see coming growth-wise?
Yeah, and that's something when I looked at last year. This was the useful life of fire trucks and things like that. And looking at that depreciation schedule, I made a change because fire trucks just don't last as long as they used to. What's the worst thing about them? Electronics, you know that, and they go bad quick, you know, so it's something, you know, to keep that in mind, that we adjust that depreciation schedule based on that. I feel comfortable asking you, or telling you that we're gonna be asking for ambulances and apparatus. The bigger we get, the more we're just gonna have to replace, so it's gonna be a cyclical thing for sure.
Okay. And we mentioned the PEMT funds and the OC contract revenue. All those things just go back into general, and they're not earmarked at all and reserved. Is there a reason for that? Because is the general budget having to foot and handle some of that? I mean, walk me through that. Or is that something that would help us for planning future? Is it just best to have that fluid?
But they are,
You'll have to bear with me because I'm still trying to heal up. So, but Commissioner, what those dollars do is they go into the general fund, but they're nowhere near enough money to cover the cost of public safety. So basically what you have to think to yourself is those revenues are there. We apply those when we're budgeting as part of the revenues to help fire. But then on top of that, we have to use the property tax, sales tax, and everything else. So they get the benefit of those dollars.
Bottom line, they're getting
But-
every bit of that and
Correct.
more.
Right.
Okay. what's the realistic expectation of the CAD maintenance fee of it increasing? When you're going through that, I keep thinking timeshares.
Sure.
People go out, buy this timeshare because we're gonna have so many vacations, and all of a sudden they get stuck in, and this low maintenance fee all of a sudden is increasing.
Right.
So we're buying into these guys, and they're saying, well, it's 200 and whatever thousand this year, but it's only gonna be 43 next year. Is it realistic that they're not going to, once we're hooked in and married to their system, suddenly those maintenance fees start going astronomical? Or
Right. And
is
that's-
that just
that's
the way it is and we don't have any other option? So typically 3 to 5% per year, that's going to increase. Okay.
Yeah, and even. I
And that goes
believe-
in IT budget, right?
That's right.
Okay.
And that's
That's
something, and that's something, it depends on, obviously, it's part of the contractual agreement, but there's even, and I want to say even with this CAD, that's a set amount. That's the nice part about sometimes locking in today's prices, but being able to have that benefit. Something we're looking at too, for next year is implementing an agreement with Stryker, who does all of our, our ambulances, our monitors, our stretchers, things like that, to have a 10-year outlook at the same price every year, so we know it makes it so much easier for budgeting purposes and as well as maintenance, and increase, like you said, anything with technology is obsolete after 2 years, so we're looking at.
Well, it's like the home crash of '07 happened because all these ARMs suddenly just started going through the roof. So stability helps us planning-wise. Okay, thanks. That's all.
Commissioner Smith?
Well, one of my questions was the same one in reference to the 6th edition of firefighters that we're requesting. Is that to keep up with the population? Is that in order that we can get to the one person, add an additional person per truck,
Right,
as we talked as
Yes,
before?
it's going to do both, basically. We're keeping up with population, but by adding those personnel to those outlying stations.
All right, and do we currently own the land for Station 7?
Not,
That's a kind of a handshake agreement with Orlando Health. When they came into the city and bought their, is it 40 acres, I said, we'd love to have a couple acres for Fire Station 7. And so handshake agreement, but I think a pretty firm handshake.
Okay.
Mr. Nesta?
Yeah, my questions are gonna be a little all over the place. The first one is, and we met about this, Reedy Creek and that issue, Orange County being kind of spread very thin. Are we planning for that? Are we planning to have to take on, I know we're taking on, we have an agreement that we already take on a lot of their stuff. Are we worried that we're gonna take on that much more and help out? Is that in any of our planning?
no, it is, but again, remember, like we discussed, there's a set threshold in place to where if that does take place, or we run over a certain amount of calls, that we would go back to the negotiation table and see, I know they're exponentially going right near us, near Horizons West is one of the fastest growing areas, so I know they're adding stations actively out there and things like that. The thought was originally when we took over Station 29 is we're eventually going to annex a lot of that area anyways. The city's getting bigger, the county's getting smaller. Certainly things that are thought of, for sure, but again, all the data I showed you today is including what we run in the county with the contract agreement and mutual aid agreements.
Okay. The PS track system, what are we using now for that?
Right now, we have a bunch of different spreadsheets and just people keeping track of it on their own. And that's the big need with this and why we want to implement a system like this.
How often is that tracked?
As far as,
Just the supplies, the equipment, things like that?
Oh,
How
daily.
often are,
daily, we do inventory truck checks every day, drug boxes, things like that.
and so they're having to put into spreadsheets daily those updates?
Yeah, there's right now we use jot forms for a lot of different things and, things like this. This system really, if we can get as unique as we want and as technology-driven as we want, where there's even barcode scanners that can, track some of this stuff, so.
Okay.
It's a much-needed system.
Okay. The, in reference to safety in general, we have a safety committee?
Yes,
How often do they meet?
quarterly,
When was the last time they met?
last quarter, I can't tell you exactly, I can look it up for you though.
Do you know what that conversation was when they did meet?
A lot of it, again, we review a lot of the accidents, incident reports that are reported. They discuss those sort of type things and, if needed, make recommendations.
So they met last quarter, but we just had a pretty significant accident recently. They still haven't met for that?
Not yet, no.
Do they have a date yet for that?
I don't believe so.
So that's concerning, right? It's a safety committee, and they should be meeting often, especially when there's an accident, to your point. The fact that they haven't met yet is really concerning. That's still putting our firefighters at risk. Something needs to be implemented differently. Yes, it may have been an accident, but more accidents can happen.
Sure.
So is there anything that we can do to implement some type of additional safety committee that actually meets consistently as it was designed to do, and then,
So currently, right now, it's still under investigation with the State Fire Marshal's office. So we can't even meet. One thing that immediately happened after this incident was I wanted a committee to get together and look at trailers as a whole. We did a outreach to all these neighboring departments to see policies, procedures, things like that, specifically with trailers. We found one in like Florida almost that had, and it was very vague. There was nothing specific to this. When you have an accident or a travesty like this, it's going to change a lot of different things, and that's something. It's not going to get kicked down the road at all. One of my number one priorities is once we was getting through last week. That was hard with our men and women, making sure that we're all here. Tomorrow, literally, I planned a lot for this today, but tomorrow I'm just going to start not looking at that now. We're going to invite the State Fire Marshal. They 4 or 5 years ago they did a complete safety assessment of our department. We want them to come back and do the same thing. It's something. When it was obviously, no one expected anything like this to ever happen, period. And when you look at your risk, and you have to make an accurate risk assessment, why are we, and again, reaching out immediately, does anyone have a policy on trailers? No, no. There's a local department had exact same trailer as us, and they took it up, It was removed from service the very next day because it's just something that was not expected. But being able to look at that, implement some of those programs, look at even how our safety committee works. I'm looking through, doing research, of course, as we should, looking at our SOGs. There's even quarterly station inspections that need to happen, that haven't been. We're going to address that, I assure you, to where, what we need to look at, where are our shortcomings, and not just trailers, of course, because that's what happened, but everything, a holistic view of that, and it's something that I promise you is on priority one for this guy and our department.
well, and in that same breath then too, none of your budgets, at least that I'm looking at, has to do with any type of training. There's no extra training being involved or anything that has to do with a relatively younger, in general, fire department. That's concerning. Again, nowhere in here was there, we're updating training, we're adding somebody to, bring on somebody to head training, anything like that. Is there a reason why?
Well, the fire service as a whole, and it's something, there's many different levels as far as training and who controls training and who does these different types of programs. My personal view is from the administration level is to provide those opportunities for individuals so they can get that training. They can go. We have a state-of-the-art training facility. We're lucky that we have that facility. Most places don't. A lot of people come here to use ours. We've added a lot of different things this year with the Connex boxes and things like that. But identifying those specific needs, a lot of times, and that's something else we're going to look at. ISO requires a certain amount, and that's, I call it just the minimum, what we need each year for training. 300 and something hours, and 240 of those hours at the company level. That's where the officer, the station officer, identifies, maybe the new person who's there that shift needs to work on this specifically, or things like that. A lot of it, you say on-the-job training, is traditionally what happens in the fire service. It's always been that way. Does it make it right, wrong, and different? It's just a lot of that happens that way. And our training program right now involves a lot of input.
So you do have a program in place?
Yes, yeah, we have a training program.
And is there like a hierarchy once on site or once on duty that says this person's in charge and they're looking over it's a much younger fire department
Absolutely.
that we have. So do we have those in place for every shift and things like that?
Yeah, and just to your point, looking at the study as well, it's amazing. 72% of people have less than 10 years on nationwide. It's a cyclical thing now where I truly believe 20 years after 9/11, when a lot of people were starting to cycle out as well. But that's certainly something that we want to emphasize. Things, you can't always assume that people know how to operate everything. And again, when we're out there looking at that, and again, from my level, if we can provide opportunities, we've done numerous different training classes, even this year at the training center. We offered truck ops there in the past. We've done VMR, we've done different things like that. But back to the basics, FDNY implemented a program years ago. They're the busiest fire department in the country, but they went back to the basics just to teach some of that basic stuff. And that's something that I'm going to start encouraging everyone from my level down, that we need to emphasize stuff like that, looking at how to run certain types of equipment, things like that.
You don't think it would be valuable to hire somebody that is specifically head of training on staff, that's their only job, not using somebody else that already is doing their job that has to kind of fill if they have downtime, training?
Yeah, and it's something we can certainly look at. Right now, it's the training, it's training kind of split between suppression and EMS. Each division chief over that heads up the training and passes things down and things like that. COVID caused a big pause in a lot of that because we simply couldn't even get together to do a lot of different things. But looking at that in the future, it comes down to even that additional district chief now. They can help orchestrate a lot of different training. If they identify something that's out there in the field, and a lot of stuff comes up for us that happens, and then we're like, oh, let's talk about that again, let's review that again. And again, knowing knowing your personnel you can't go out and know exactly what each individual needs. And that's a lot of times when it comes down to the company level and looking at some of that stuff. Not to say that it's, a department thing we all want to tackle together, of course.
Well, I think we're missing two huge points here. The safety committee that doesn't meet regularly or update the department, and then somebody that's not actually in charge of training specifically. We're not a small city anymore. We need something that actually is implemented often and somebody that is in charge of training specifically. I think that's a huge miss, and I think up here we need a budget that needs to be budgeted in some capacity in some way. And then somehow, I don't know the oversight of this, but the safety committee, I'm amazed that they haven't met yet in any capacity to go over how can we just do better as a department with what we just dealt with, and what we're still dealing with. So I think that's a huge misstep as well, and something that needs to be taken care of. In reference to overtime, what does that look like on an annual basis? Is it just as needed? If somebody wants to choose overtime, they're able to do it? Is there a lot of overtime? Is there not really a lot of opportunities for overtime? Walk us through that.
Well, right now, there's a lot of opportunity for overtime. We have vacancies and things like that. And COVID obviously caused a lot of overtime over the past few years that wasn't expected. With the rules changing every third day of, exposures and things like that. When we do fill our vacancies, it's something, when we hired the people we need to fill our vacancies right now, I think it's something that's going to hash itself out. And then, adding those additional people, making sure that those opportunities are there. Are we filling vacancies on each shift with overtime?
Like, is it mandatory that people come in to do that?
No, so basically, right now, we're allowed to have up to 5 people off. That's the set amount per day. So that's why you'll see even on the thing that we have 38 people we're asking for, but 33 is minimum manning for the shift with those 5 people. Anyone over that 5th person is now an overtime spot. Some of those, yes, are backfilled, if needed. A lot of times in this agreement with the union, we got together and kind of hashed all that out, how the process works and things like that. And if we try and do it 2 shifts ahead of time, but you never know the day of or that morning of if something happens, and that's when we consider an emergency overtime. That's still handled through our new vector solution, and it's shot out to everybody, and if someone accepts it, great, and we have different categories, rank, qualifications, things like that. So if someone does accept it, then, fortunately, we don't have to mandatory that much.
Do we have, you said we don't have mandatory that much?
I think we've done it twice.
That's interesting. Do we have, is it often that somebody's doing 2 24s back to back? Is that a common occurrence? Is it?
Sure, yeah. If you work overtime shift or even time trades, if you work for somebody, a lot of times you can do 48s.
Okay. That's concerning as well. In reference to fire stations and their current condition, again, I didn't see much budgeted in here for upgrading or keeping current the deficiencies that our fire stations currently do have. Can you speak to that?
Sure, that was something that we definitely had, it's going to be worked out in this budget. It's going to be under facilities, though. And that's something that was, was asked to.
So whether it's, because I saw we just bought a dishwasher or something last month for one of the fire stations. That's all under facilities?
Yeah, a lot of that is. We do have a little bit of amount budgeted for us, like emergency-based stuff that Chief Bowman, who does a lot of our facility stuff, he can go out and get it quickly if needed, but a lot of the bigger projects, infrastructure-related stuff, does fall to facilities.
Okay. And then, is that request coming from you then, that you request from the facilities that gets taken care of?
Yeah, especially this year, looking at adding these additional people, that was one of my concerns when we were talking about looking at this is a systematic approach. We need to look at Station 3 specifically for some infrastructure, increasing. Our stations were designed for people. Now we're adding these people, wear and tear on things just happen. Looking at those different things, and there's always you talk about a dishwasher. Is it better to buy a commercial or is it better to buy a residential? And you look at some of that stuff and how often we replace things, believe it or not, we look at stuff like that, and a lot of times, making sure that we're getting the most bang for our buck, if that makes sense. But in a big thing like that, Station 3 specifically, we need to re-gut a lot of it and make some improvements. Station 4 as well.
Well, one thing I saw at one of the stations was that they, a laundry room the dryer vented into the room. That's a problem.
Which one?
It's not to code. It's Fire Station 2. It vents into the room, into the laundry room.
I believe there's a floor specifically designed for that where it goes into the floor.
Well, it's not doing that. So it's specifically in that room, so that's a problem. And we're not budgeting, hopefully facilities has that budgeted, I guess. I'll make sure to look for that. But these kind of things, these safety issues, seems like we're not budgeting for it or talk about kicking the can down the road. This is what we're doing. And as the junior up here, I need to be thinking 10, 15, 20 years down the road, not just 5 to 10. And that's a huge safety issue as well. One thing that I want to make sure we're not doing is that with these 6 new firefighters is that we're going to, once we open staff Station 6, is that we're going to use those 6 that now we're helping and hiring for what is needed and just moving them over immediately to 6 so that we're at the same staffing level that we are now.
No, absolutely.
I want to make sure that does not happen, and that if that is the case, then we need to hire immediately. And from a conversation I just recently had, I heard something along the lines that we have 20 applicants in line for fire. So we can definitely hire them, is what I'm being told.
Yeah, it's happening now. We're in the process, and that's something we're looking at doing in August.
Well, I'd really like, I think training needs to be involved in this in some capacity, and I think the safety committee, I mean, there needs to be guidelines or rules that come up with that. Again, the fact that they haven't met yet is shocking. So I would ask everyone up here, training of some sort needs to be implemented or budgeted in this. I mean, it's long overdue. With that, I will concede.
Okay.
So-
Well, you never asked me if I was, you started with him and walked all the way up.
I'm coming down to you.
Okay, I'm the last one here. One of the things that I had, and he did touch on that, as is the training officer. You were the training officer before you became chief. So when you became chief, was that position even considered to be filled?
Yeah, and basically, my job, it was, when I was an assistant chief, was training and operations. So a lot of the different stuff with ordering supplies and things like that, which is Chief Howe's job now. So we kind of took, and a lot of EMS training aspect now falls on Will Sanchez, the division chief of EMS. So we've kind of split that role into two, and.
Chief
who was-
Howe, though, does HR for,
No,
no.
ma'am, he's suppression.
he's suppression.
Yes, ma'am.
So in May, when I went to your awards ceremony, and you have district chief promotions, you have lieutenant promotions, you have engineer promotions, is there any training program for them as they get promoted? I mean, besides you promote them, and now they're assigned, is there anything in place for them to understand their new duties, their new responsibilities?
Yeah, and that's something that I've really been trying to tackle with a officer development program. It's something, you know, that I actually asked a lieutenant to head up and look at and meet with a committee to see at each level. You know, it's not just a district chief, that is important, don't get me wrong, but at a lieutenant level, at engineer level, looking at that and almost making, I want to kind of make it a mandatory program eventually when we get up and running to promote. And looking and talking with other agencies is something we might do on a regional level. So it's just beyond having certification and things like that. Tackling things, especially at the district chief level, like HR, like finance-related stuff. The more that we deal with on an administration level with some of that stuff.
So
Again,
with this budget year, is there anything in place to start that program?
yeah, and again, that's something we want to do in-house. You know, so meeting with a lieutenant who's going to be establishing that committee and making sure that we're rolling forward with identifying needs and things that they see from the boots up, if that makes sense, that they identify as shortcomings. And that way we're able to tackle and develop a plan, a development program, basically, to identify some of that stuff and train on that.
So again, I'm kind of on the same level, which is we do need a training officer, one that is just specifically working on training classes, programs, to ensure that all the members of your department are trained where they need to be trained in their specific job duties and job titles. And I will say this, this incident that happened with the line of duty death of one of your firefighters should certainly really get everyone on board to say, we need to change now, not tomorrow, and this is the budget season right now. This is where you need to take advantage of how do we make some changes now? So that, because I'm listening to you and you're saying, we're working on that, we're working on that. Well, if anything, the death of Austin Doran should say to you, we need to change things now so we never have to be where we were this past week. So if there's something that we can add to this budget to create, of course, the safety committee, something that is consistent, and a training officer, that is something that I feel should be in our budget right now.
Yeah, and the safety committee aspect, there's an established safety committee already. There's state statutes that require us to have that in place.
How many do you have right now in that safety committee?
We had one just retire. Chief Jones was on it, and we have, and we're gonna have to, and that was another thing that we're actually getting ready to do, is I want it diverse safety group. We had a lot of chief officers that were on there versus ground level guys. So it's something very much that we're going to look at moving forward.
So what was the answer? How many's on there right now?
4.
Okay.
Okay.
Commissioner Banks, you have another question?
Yeah, again, if there's things that we need, let us know so we can help you, help us help you. Just curious about the thing that you mentioned about the vent being off. Is this something that, you said something there's in the floor, so is this a matter of something got kicked off that needs to be replaced? Or is this are there dangerous fumes coming through that? Or is it just, we're blowing hot air into a room we're trying to air condition? I mean, what's the point of that? And is it that just, there's something already there, it just needs to be stuck back in the hole? I mean,
As far as again, I'm going to go out there tomorrow and look at it, but when I was out there, I was a lieutenant out there for 5 years. It was designed to go into the floor, and this actual vent system that goes in there, it sounds like something got kicked off.
So just a regular dryer vent, just hot air, but not something that's of like a toxic nature or anything that, okay.
Well,
So we just need to
humid
make
air
sure-
coming in there, so you're not doing it in your own house. So why would I
Right.
want the fire department to be dealing with that? And from my understanding, they had to remove, ironically, a fire alarm smoke detector because it would go off in that room.
So why couldn't someone just put it back in? What am I missing?
I
Why-
don't think that's the case.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to get at. Is it something that needs repaired, we need to get somebody on that, or is it a vent pulled out of its hole and just needs to be stuck back in, So you'll go and check on
I'll be
that?
driving probably on the way home.
Okay.
I have one other question. And you mentioned about the fact that we're growing and we're going to be adding a Station 7. We're talking about annexing some additional properties into Apopka, going to the south, east, and west, or what have you. Are we going to need an additional station if we annex south Apopka? And so that going to require us to have a budget amendment, or you think Station 6 will be able to handle that?
Station 6 will absolutely not be able to handle that. It would certainly be an additional station that we would need to cover that area.
Okay.
Everybody good?
Okay.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thanks, Chief. Next up, Deputy Chief Miller.
Okay, this is financial, police. Okay, so that one is this one. Thank you. There we are. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening.
Deputy Chief Jerome Miller, Apopka Police Department. For the past 5 years, the Apopka Police Department has looked at how to best police the city and tweak our budget. We have looked at technology to help us work smarter with the resources that we have. We have also reorganized the agency to try to move efficient in the services we provide to the community. Based on the changes and measurements we monitor, we have submitted our budget and prepared a presentation to document our accomplishments along with providing our needs and concerns as we move forward. Hopefully that you all had an opportunity to look at what we submitted for our overall budget. And continuing to make safety a priority as the city prepares for the rapid and increased growth, the safety of our community will always be a top concern of our residents. An investment in public safety fosters trust, gets people engaged in their communities, and supports economic activity. Public safety perceptions used by community members to determine how safe they really feel. Public safety is a location factor for individuals looking to move into a community, and for companies looking to invest in a community. Some of our accomplishments for this past year, COVID kind of changes the landscape, the way that we operate and move. The events that continue to occur around the country, I don't think I need to speak on that. I think that if you watch the news, you'll know exactly what we're talking about. COVID-19 has changed the employment landscape and made it challenging to find applicants and to hire new personnel. Although not unique to Apopka, finding qualified applicants for police officers and communications technicians has become very challenging. And one thing, I'm going to go through our PowerPoint, I'm going to put up their presentation, but it's two words that I think that we ought to remember here is retention and recruitment. We changed the way that we've done things through the years. I've been here 26 years here at this police department. I have never seen as challenging times that we are in today as far as filling these positions. Currently, we have 18 positions open here at the Apopka Police Department. Wow. We tried social media. We've gone out to the local 4 academies here, which is Osceola, Lake, Seminole, and Valencia. But we had to change that. We had to expand our search. We've gone down to Polk County. We've gone out to Marion County. And we just tested, I think, 6 individuals on Friday. 2 of those individuals made it through. So we're struggling. What do we have to do to get to the point to where we don't have to come to you and say that we have 18 vacancies? And what I'm afraid of, I just had some conversations today, that we possibly might have 2 more vacancies, probably by the end of next week. That's discouraging. You know, I talked to our recruiter. He goes out, he works on this daily. He goes to these academies. We had 3 persons lined up from Seminole State College. And we're processing them. And at the very end, they told us, no, we're going to go and take our talents to another agency here in Seminole County. That's disheartening when you put all that effort. But why? Why did they choose that agency in Seminole County? What I learned is, a friend of mine, he's the chief over there, what I learned was that he went back and reimbursed them while they were in the academy the monies that they put forward to attend the academy. So that's a game changer. It's a game changer. We need to change the way we're doing things. And in this budget, you'll see that we're requesting some funds to actually do that, to actually pay for some individuals to attend the academy. There's only 3 slots in there, but we need 10, 15. But we only asked for 3. Events around the country. Due to the events that continue around the country, law enforcement is still facing many challenges that we have not faced before. Law enforcement officers are being attacked and killed in record numbers. Violence around the country is increasing, and Apopka is not immune from that violence. Law enforcement continues to adjust to these changes and address mandates from government. Often, these mandates are needed, and to date, all the mandated requirements have been implemented by our agency well before being required to. I don't know if you know, but probably heard some of you, we continue to conduct the right training, racial intelligence, de-escalation training, fair and impartial policing training to ensure our personnel are well-trained and aware of the issues facing the police profession. As of today, grants. We've been awarded over $143,000 in grants from the state and federal agencies. And if you're looking at our budget, you've seen that our budget has increased tremendously. But most of that you'll see in the PowerPoint presentation. Most of those items are personnel salary study increase. We're asking for 2 new crossing guards. And this primarily is going to be for the new schools up there off of Jason Dwelly. Currently, we have, I checked today, we have, I think, 5 vacancies in crossing guards. So if there's anybody out there in the listening world listening to me, please go online here in the city and submit or tell someone that we have vacancies in school crossing guards. So school starts probably 2 weeks out, and we're definitely down. I know that we've been talking about and looking at increasing what their wages for that position, because I think Orange County last year bumped their wages up. I almost want to say it's almost $15, and we have to get in the game.
What are we paying?
I think currently we're at $13. 13, but we're going to 15
You are
is what
going to
we spoke
15?
about, yes, yes. Increase in vehicle maintenance cost. We're asking for 17 total new vehicle replacements. And if you want to see one, it's right out there in the parking lot. It's the blue Bomber, as we call it, that I drive, vehicle number 1233. It has 137,000 miles on it. It's 2010. So, you know, we try to keep that up. I mean, we laugh and joke about it, but we try to keep that up, our vehicles. And we try to make them last at least 7 to 8 years, these patrol vehicles that we're buying. The carryover funding from 21-22 to cover the equipment for 20 sworn vacancies. Increase in the fuel cost. Continuing contractual costs for body cameras and tasers. The replacement of funding for intersection traffic cameras and server, and priority dispatch contract for quality assurance for emergency medical dispatching. Those are big. Those are the big increases that you see in our budget all across all 5 divisions that we have. We got Chief's Office, Field Services, Support Services, Crossing Guards, and Community Communications Center. Get to the chief's office here. Some of these things here I just spoke about, but I just wanted to click on so you can see the numbers here, where we are. In the chief's office, increased personnel salary study increases, 3 law enforcement academy sponsorships, what I spoke about, and the 1 new vehicle replacement. That's the blue Bomber.
Which one is it? Go back.
Field services.
There you go, yeah. There it is. Thanks.
Field services, personnel salary, study increases, increase in funding for patrol vehicle maintenance, purchase of new hire ballistic vest, purchase of 88 expiring Kevlar helmets, carryover funding from the 21-22 equipment to outfit the 20 sworn officers, increase in funding for fuel, body camera tasers, continuing contract, and intersection traffic cameras and server to store camera data.
Support services.
Am I going too fast, Commissioner?
You
catching up
are,
with
and I'm just trying to navigate this new.
Okay,
It's wonderful.
I'll slow down a little
Learning
bit.
curve.
I'm just, I'm happy I have Commissioner Banks in here kind of helping me out.
And support services, again, personnel salary study increases, and 6 vehicles, and support services. Support services make up all of our school resource officers, criminal investigators, our TAC team, and some of our, what we call UC guys that are attached to some of the federal agencies. And also our crime scene tech. I don't want to leave them out. Crossing guards, like I said, we're asking for the 2 new positions to help us cover the new school up on Jason Dwelly.
So that's 15 total positions, right?
That'll be 15, that's correct. We're currently at 13, we're adding 2, asking for 2. Communications Center. Personnel salary study increases, priority dispatching, contractual services for quality assurance on emergency medical dispatching. Jessica, where's my PowerPoint? Yep. All right. Can you all see that on your laptops?
No,
No?
wait,
Let's go back to the other one.
so I have to go back to the other one. One moment.
Okay, yes, I'll slow down.
Okay, so we go back to PD right here. That's right here, right. That's it. Okay,
As you're all aware, city is growing exponentially. We almost,
here we are.
one more thing IT forgot to put in the budget. Can we get a bigger screen up here? Can we do that? Population. Where you here on this screen, you can see 10,000 dwelling units planned or under construction. Growth in the city is going to continue at a fast pace. From 2020 to 2021, the city grew by approximately 1,800 residents. Pop continues to grow at a rapid pace. In 2010, there were 15,707 households in Apopka. In 2021, it's estimated the number of households increased to 20,311. This represents a 29.3% increase in the number of households in the city. 2010 census showed a population of Apopka of 41,542. In April 2021, the city's Apopka's Community Development Department estimated the population of Apopka to be 56,727 residents. This is an increase of 15,185 residents since 2010. This represents a 36.6% increase in our residential population in the past 11 years. It's not include the commercial and industrial growth that we're experiencing. Approved and planned growth. Currently, there are 9,900 dwelling units planned or under construction in the city of Apopka. This is up from the 7,270 dwelling units planned or under construction last year and 5,777 the year before. Based on the city's community development unit, in April of 2021, the average household had 2.79 persons living in it. The residential growth will add an estimated 27,621 residents to the city of Apopka over the next few years. This is up from the estimated 21,810. In addition, there's 14 million square foot of industrial and commercial growth planned or under construction. This is up from the estimated 11 million last year. The city continues to modify the future land use within the city and allow for rezoning that allows the denser growth. As a result, we are experiencing an increase in apartment complexes and townhomes. All the growth is going to continue to tax the resources that we currently have. Local agency officer ratio. The state average for police departments dropped from 2.43 officers per 1,000 residents in 2020 to 2.33 officers per 1,000 in 2021. And the local average of the agencies listed on your screen there is 2.39. Due to the city's growth in 2021, the Apopka Police Department fell from a per capita of 2.09 in 2021 to 2.08 in 2022. As this graph shows, we continue to be below the state and local average for officers per 1,000 residents. Authorized positions. We have 122 authorized positions at the Apopka Police Department. Since fiscal year 15, we've added 24 authorized police officer positions to the police department, authorized number. However, the city's growth over this same period, we should have added an additional 15 positions in order to achieve the state average of 2.33 officers per 1,000 residents. And just out of curiosity, I was at my desk yesterday or earlier today, and I called around to a couple different municipalities, and I was just curious what the ratio was between fire department, police department. And I called some of my friends over in Winter Garden, 67 fire personnel versus 92 police. Ocoee, 70 fire versus 105 police. Maitland, 40 fire versus 55 police. So I don't know how many our fire department have. I think they're pretty much equal as where we are today. But my point is we need more folk, but we got to fill these positions that we currently have before we come back to you and ask you for more. That's our goal. That's our mission, or to fill those positions. And I tell each and every one of our employees, just because we have someone in the recruiting section doesn't mean that each and every one of you aren't recruiters. Because each and every day that you suit up and you get ready and you go to work, and when you make your contacts, wherever you are, you're recruiting because they're evaluating you, they're watching you. And so hopefully with that, and hopefully what I'm going to present to you here later on, hopefully lift their morale and give them a little boost, and see if we can get this done, because the city's not stopped growing. I mean, you see the permits and everything that our plans are approved. We're going to continue to grow. And it's not the little small town anymore 26 years ago when I came here to work. I can assure you that. Local cities by square mile, you can see where we sit. It's important that we look at the area of responsibility and coverage of the police department. City of Apopka spans over 35 square miles. The chart shows a comparison of the square miles for several local cities. The average square miles for the city listed are 21.87. As you can see, at 35.5 square miles, we have the third largest service area listed out of these cities that I have shown here. Local agency officers per square mile. As you can see from the slide, not only do we have one of the lowest per capitas in the area, we also have one of the lowest officers per square mile ratios among the agencies listed. Our Code 1 and Code 3 response times went up slightly. Our Priority 2 response times were down slightly in 2021, but really no significant change in any of those, but they did go up in Code 1 and Code 3. Our CRA, Community Redevelopment Area, it's only 1 square mile here in the city of Apopka. However, there's a lot going on in that 1 square mile. Due to our emphasis on our crime in the CRA, violent crime was down by 6% in 2021. This marks the 3rd year in a row that violent crime has been down in the CRA. CRA is approximately 1 square mile, 633 acres, and houses less than 5% of the city's residents. Although CRA amounts for a very small portion of the city, it accounted for 22% of our violent crime. I'll say it again. Although CRA accounts for a very small portion of the city, it accounted for 22% of our violent crime. That is down from the 31% in 2019 and 28% in 2020. As you can tell, we're making progress, but there's more work to be done. Property crimes. Property crimes in CRA 2021 remained consistent with where they were in 2020. However, the CRA still accounted for 18% of the property crimes that occurred across the city. When you look at both violent crimes and property crimes, the 1 square mile of the CRA continues to account for 19% of the crime in the city, but overall accounts for less than 1% of the city. Property crimes were down by 10% in 2021. Overall crime in Apopka was down 8% in 2021. Now to our budget request. Here's the retention and recruitment that I spoke about earlier today. At this time, we're not coming to you requesting or asking for any additional sworn positions. When the vacancies are filled during the 22-23 fiscal year, we're requesting to come back to council to add an additional 5 positions during that fiscal year. These additional 5 officers with salary, equipment, and vehicles will cost approximately an additional $750,000. We're currently authorized at 122. However, if we intend to improve our per capita and officer per square mile, the ratios to be closer in line with the state average and surrounding agencies, we must continue to add additional police officers. In order to attain the state per capita average of 2.33 officers per 1,000 residents, our authorized sworn positions should be approximately 136. This number is 136 authorized sworn positions was confirmed by the independent staff study conducted by the Architectural Design Group during the Public Safety Building Needs Assessment. These additional 5 officers will assist in keeping up with the residential and commercial population boom occurring across the city. As mentioned earlier, we currently have 9,900 residential units are planned or under construction. Over 14 million square foot of industrial and commercial space are planned or under construction. Recruitment and retention. Starting pay, longevity, PTO, accrual rates, shift differential pay, educational assistance, assignment pay, and specialty pay are becoming non-competitive or are not currently provided to our personnel. I had a friend of mine call me from over in Volusia County. They run the academy over there. And they say, your ears must have been burning. And I said, well, why do you say that? She said, because I got 2 recruits in my class I'm talking to, trying to send them to Apopka. And second question she asked me was, do we offer educational reimbursement, assistance? I said, no, we once did not too long back, but we don't have that anymore. And they said, well, that was a deal breaker for them. I said, well, don't tell them to give up on us that easy just because of that. I said, we can always work towards some things and see if we can get it back in the budget. But my point is, with these benefits, we used to pump our chest a little bit here in Apopka and talk about where we were with our benefits. But these other municipalities and governments, they're surpassing us now. And we need to take a look at those. I think it's City of Ocoee. They got a union over there at the police department. And I think we get 2.77 per week for PTO. I think they're over 3% or 3 point something per week. So those are the little things that we don't think that these young applicants are looking at, but they are. And when these recruiters will go out to these academies, they're talking about it. and they're telling these recruits who has what and what they're able to offer them. So, every now and then we need to reach back and we need to take a look at where we are and where we're trying to get to. The Apopka Police Department used to be at the top or the near when it came to police officers' pay. Our starting pay has dropped compared to other agencies over the past several years. Everyone is hiring, everyone is competing for the limited number of academy applicants. We're now competing locally, regionally, for qualified applicants. Our recruiters are traveling the state to visit academies where we used to be able just to go to the 4 that I listed earlier: Lake, Seminole, Osceola, and Valencia. Can't do that anymore. It has always been a dangerous and difficult and challenging job. However, over the past couple of years, violence towards law enforcement has dramatically increased. Recruits in our hiring process are being picked up by other agencies with higher pay. Sad to say, I walk around the building and I talk to some of the officers sometime and I overhear them talking. And then I say, "What did you just say?" "Well, I'm processing with such and such agency. I'm processing here." "Why?" We always hear it's because, they got family here. We can't stop them for that. But when it comes down to these benefits, pay, and things of that nature, I think if we're in the ball game, I think we can keep them. Because I think we have some of the best here in the city of Apopka working. And I hate to see them spend 3 years, 5 years here with us, trained up, and take their talents elsewhere. I think that's just, you can't stop them, but it's a slap in the face, and it hurts when you see them walk out the door. We just had one a week ago with experience from Apopka. Don't know why he left, but he came in, he resigned. And he's only been here a month and a half. I don't know if someone else was talking at him, pulling him, say, "Hey, we got dangling that carrot in his face." I don't know. He didn't give it up. He didn't say at the exit interview, but those are the things that we're dealing with now. And they're looking and they're talking. Recruits in the hiring process are being picked up by other agencies. Our experienced, highly trained personnel are sought out after other agencies, especially larger ones. Larger agencies offer benefits other than higher pay. They offer the opportunity of a more diverse career. They also have off-duty opportunities that we don't have here. But we do go and assist the city of Orlando with off-duty, and a lot of our officers take advantage of that. So, but even with that, when they're down there working some of these events, you got Orlando and Orange County trying to pick them off, trying to hire them. So, watch what you ask for. They want more off-duty, but we got to be careful. So, COVID changed the employment landscape. Many people are choosing to work at home. Law enforcement profession has also changed over the past several years, resulting in less applicants and less police academy graduates. That's a fact. You can go to any academy around here and you'll see smaller and smaller classes. So in turn, we're all fighting for the same 15 people in an academy class. Our current salary here at Apopka is $46,600 and has fallen out of the market. Police officers' starting pay has not been adjusted since 2019 when the city conducted a salary study while other agencies in the area have increased their starting pay. Current starting pay is not within the market where the market is going and is making recruiting very difficult. Currently, we have 17 police officer vacancies. I believe it's 18 now. Current salaries, if not addressed, will make retention and recruiting even more difficult in the future. Salary information and data in the following sections of the presentation was obtained from a survey developed and sent out by the Apopka Police Department in March of this year. The survey was sent to law enforcement agencies in Orange, Osceola, Seminole, Volusia, Lake, and Brevard County. Of the 60 agencies, 42 of them responded. And if you know anything about surveys, you get 42 to respond out of 60. That's big. That's 70%. That's big. I'm glad they did, but we were hoping for 100%, but we didn't get it. Agency demographics used in comparisons. You can see from the information on the slide, other than the listed sheriff offices, the Apopka Police Department serves the third largest community as it relates to population and square miles. Starting salaries for police officers. Take a look. Although the Apopka Police Department is the third among the cities listed in the size and population, we're currently 11th in starting salaries. The Apopka Police Department serves the third largest community, however, we are 11th among the agencies listed when it comes to starting salaries. We used to be at the top of this list and have always been within the top 4. Many of the agencies above are smaller than us in population and square miles, and they are not seeing the significant growth that Apopka is currently experiencing. Starting salary market. As you saw from the previous slide, our starting salary is currently 11th in the area, even though we have become one of the largest agencies in Central Florida and going to continue to experience growth for years to come. Orange County Sheriff is in negotiations with their union, starting salary $51,000. Orlando Police Department, $51,000. Agencies with the state of Florida, they used to be the bottom. Now they're starting at $50,000. You got the lottery, police, you got the Florida Fish and Wildlife, Highway Patrol, Florida Department of Law Enforcement. Orange County Corrections, they're in negotiations starting at $50,000, $16, and 60 cents. State budget is allocating a starting salary for teachers of $47,000. State is changing the Florida retirement system to allow for 8 years of drop. This will match our city of Apopka's drop. When I tell you they're always looking and working on their benefits, that's one thing they just changed. One of the command staff from the sheriff office is going to retire at the end of this month. When the governor signed this bill, he called and told me, he said, no, Jerome, I'm staying another 3 years. He said, I just won't be in the Apopka area anymore. I'm going to the Criminal Investigations Division. So I was happy for him because I know he wasn't ready to go. And he said he don't know if he'll do 3, but he's going to stick it out. So see where it lands. How do we remain competitive in this market? All the local agencies mentioned in the previous slides are competing for the same law enforcement applicants that we are. We have adjusted our recruiting practices and now travel to academies across the state looking for applicants. We used to be able to find sufficient applicants from just the 4 law enforcement academies I mentioned. This is no longer the case, as most academy recruits are already sponsored by an agency while in the academy. To remain competitive in today's market when it comes to recruiting and retention, it's our recommendation that we increase the starting salary for police officers to $51,027 here in the city of Apopka. This is a 9.5% increase from the current starting salary of $46,600. We're asking for $51,027, and the current starting salary is $46,600. Our top pay doesn't need to be looked at. It doesn't need to be addressed. I think we're well in the market with that. To avoid compression issues among officers, it is recommended that the 9.5 wage adjustment be applied across the rank of police officer. Currently, 51% of our police officers, if all authorized positions were filled, have less than 5 years of experience. These officers are not vested in the retirement system and will often change careers for an opportunity to increase their salary and benefits. Approximately 20% of our police officers, if all authorized positions were filled, have between 5 and 10 years experience. We're young, folk. We're young, very young. And, you know, I hear some of these senior officers around here, oh, man, I'm hitting 20 years or I hit 25. They're looking, they're talking. And it won't be long before they're walking out that door. And if we don't do something and bring people in-house, it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough. This means 71% of our police officers have been here less than 10 years of experience. Approximately 44% of our authorized positions, if all positions were filled, are below the recommended starting pay of $51,027 and includes officers hired all the way back starting September 2018. These officers are well-trained and experienced, as well as sought out by larger agencies. It's a fact because somebody tried to reach out to me from one of them. I said, no. I said, I'm not going through that again. No, 26 years, I'm good. So they are reaching out, no doubt. Currently, when an officer is promoted to corporal, they receive a 2% raise. And now we're talking about our lead police officers, what you'll see, and the corporals, 2 stripes on their shirts. There are currently 8 authorized corporal positions within the agency. The 8th one, we just made a corporal with our school resource officers position. Being that we had another school, the span of control was so far, we had to bring another supervisor into the fold. In 2019, the city salary study established a lead police officer pay grade 11P with a starting pay of $54,970. For some unknown reason, this pay grade was never implemented. Officers are normally eligible for corporal after 3 years of service. If an officer received the maximum allocated raise of 6%, those 3 years, their salary would approximately be $54,988 annually. It is recommended that the pay grade 11P be implemented. This would be within the pay grade of officers that would normally be eligible for corporal. Adjusting the starting police officer pay to $51,027 and implementing the pay grade 11P lead police officer will create a pay separation between these ranks of approximately 7.7%, but will create a compression issue between current police officers and current corporals. To avoid this issue between current police officers and the current corporal, it is recommended that the current corporal receive a 7.7% across the board salary adjustment. The top payout for this 11P grade is $89,326. It is above the market average and does not need to be adjusted at this time. When promoted to corporal, these individuals take on a supervision responsibility as well as several other administrative duties that will prepare them for the future of advancement. The corporal rank is part of our succession planning to prepare our personnel to be the future leaders of the agency. Sergeant rank. As illustrated on this slide, our starting sergeant salary has also fallen out of market for the size of the community that we serve. We are 14th on this list and well behind agencies that are much smaller than we are. Currently, I think we have 12. I know on the slide it says 8, but we have 12 authorized sergeant positions within the agency. As you can see from the previous slide, our starting sergeant salary has fallen out of market since the city's salary survey conducted in 2019. Many of the smaller agencies in the area have surpassed our starting sergeant salary. The average starting salary for sergeant for the agencies listed on the previous slide is $64,313.53. Versus our starting salary of $60,467. This puts our starting sergeant salary 6.4% out of the market average for the agencies listed. To bring our sergeants back into the market, we're recommending an increase to the starting sergeant salary of 9.5%. This will bring them to a starting salary of $66,211.37. To avoid compression issues among the sergeants and other ranks, it is recommended that this increase be across the board for all current sergeants. Even with this salary adjustment, we only moved from 14 to number 7 on the list. It is predictable that the average starting sergeant salaries for the agencies listed will increase over the next year as officers' starting salaries at those agencies will also increase. Lieutenants. You see where we start, 73, 165. There are currently 7 authorized lieutenant positions in the agency. We just lost one. He retired out and went to go work for the state attorney's office as an investigator within the last month. The average lieutenant pay for the agencies listed on the previous page is $75,339.28 versus our current starting salary of $73,165. As you can see, our starting lieutenant pay has fallen approximately 3% out of the local market. To reduce compression among the ranks, current lieutenants, it is recommended that starting lieutenant salary be increased by 5.5%. This will bring the lieutenant starting salary to $77,189.08 and will be slightly above the average of the agencies listed on the chart, but would only move us up one position on the list. The current top-out pay for the lieutenant is above the current market and does not need to be adjusted at this time. Communications technician. 37,545 and 5 cents starting salary. They're out of market. As you can see from the previous slide, starting salary for communication technician is currently 8th in the area for those agencies that have full service dispatch centers. The communication technicians at the Apopka Police Department are trained in every facet related to the 911 center. They must be able to answer emergency and non-emergency calls for service, dispatch calls for service, handle teletype, dispatch for other agencies, Maitland and Edenville, as well as dispatch for our fire department. This is unique from the surrounding dispatch centers in that other agencies' dispatchers often have their personnel specialized in each position, and they are not required to be trained in all positions as the Apopka dispatchers are. The majority of the communications centers specialize in police or fire, and not both. We currently have 9 vacancies within our communications center out of the 28 authorized positions. Many other communication centers are experiencing shortages as well and are increasing salaries to fill these positions. Currently, the Orange County Sheriff Office is approximately 35% telecommunications short of their 202 authorized positions. Winter Garden Police Department has approximately 6 vacancies out of their 20 authorized positions. Osceola County Sheriff currently is approximately 24 vacancies out of their 60 authorized. Winter Park Police Department has approximately 6 vacancies out of their 18 authorized positions and has raised their starting salary to $41,057 to attract applicants. In order to be competitive and attractive qualified applicants, it is recommended that the starting salary for communications technicians be raised to $41,299. To achieve this increase, communications technicians would be moved from their current pay grade 7 to pay grade 8. This salary will increase, move Apopka up to near the top of the list, as we do not know what the other agencies around us are considering raising their starting salary to. As with previous salary adjustment recommendations, it is recommended that the salary increase 10% be across the board to eliminate compression issues among current personnel. Our lead communication personnel are the supervisors within our comm center. They perform all the functions of the communication technicians along with having the additional responsibility of supervising personnel. The current starting salary for lead communication technician is $41,299.55. Raising the communications technician starting salary to $41,299.55 will place both the communications tech and lead communications tech in the same pay grade, creating compression issues. To avoid the compression issues, it is recommended that the lead communications technician's starting salary be adjusted to $45,429.51. To achieve this increase, lead communications technician will be moved from their current pay grade 8 to pay grade 9. It is recommended that this salary adjustment, 10%, be applied to all lead technicians to avoid compression among current personnel. Records clerk. They touch everything that comes through that police department. You see them sitting up there in that front window, in the box, we call it. Their currently starting salary is $31,028.96. We currently have 3 authorized records clerks positions at the Apopka Police Department. As you can see from the previous slide, our records clerks are well below the current market. Starting salary for our records clerk is currently $14.29. Our records clerks are well trained, and their duties and responsibilities require specific training and knowledge. Some of their duties and responsibilities as a record clerk: receive, review, and prepare public records requests, receives, reviews, process, enters, tracks, and files of all incident, accident, supplemental reports, citations, warrants, parking tickets, subpoenas, and other records. Review and distribute agency records and reports for officers, attorneys, court personnel, outside agencies, and the general public. Completes information entries into FCIC for validation reports, fingerprints, city personnel, as well as the public, conducts records checks for the public, and answers all incoming phone calls to the police department, collects receipts and records various fines and fees, balance and submit monies daily to appropriate office. As you can see, our records clerk position is no longer a generated clerk position. It has evolved over the years into a position that requires specialized, enhanced, and distinct training. And in order to make the records clerk position competitive, it is recommended that the starting salary be adjusted to $34,131.86. To accomplish this salary adjustment, records clerks would be moved from their current pay grade 5 to pay grade 6. It is recommended that this salary adjustment, 10%, be applied to all the current records clerks to avoid compression issues among current personnel. How lovely is this here? The proposed funding source, carryover from personnel savings in the year's budget from the various vacancies within the agency. It is anticipated that there will be over $1 million remaining in the police department's fiscal year 21-22 personnel budget that can be utilized to fund the proposed salary increases.
Thank you, Deputy Chief.
Mr. Nesta.
Thorough presentation. I appreciate it.
Excellent.
A lot of detailed information. I guess the one question I had kind of starting off is the salaries were kind of one component of our recruitment. The academy reimbursement, things like that, that's not budgeted in this in any capacity?
Is it not budgeted
Yeah.
right now?
Or in this, are we trying to implement that? You said 3 only,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, we're trying to sponsor 3 individuals to attend the academy. Yes.
Okay.
So if I, 1, 2, 3, if I wanted to send them to academy, we can pay for them to go to the academy.
Okay.
Y'all ready?
Okay, we're dealing with enough issues already. Stop poaching. Okay. Because, especially with where your funding source, that we already have kind of funds there, I would almost want to see that increase to a higher number, just for kind of where we're at. Just more academy reimbursement, I think, would be valuable to fill what we need to. I think those two together with the increase in salaries would be really beneficial for our city. Other than that, it's I hope we're not here again. I hope we don't come from 4 years ago and then now we're doing big jumps when we don't need to. They can be small incremental jumps, and I hope that us as a council, we continue to make those small incremental jumps so it's not 10% increases that we're seeing and we're so under the market, it's embarrassing. So I appreciate the information. This was detailed. It's just something I would definitely want to be more proactive than reactive how we are now. So
Thank you.
other than that, I'm good.
Commissioner Smith?
And what does it cost to go to the academy?
I believe it's about $3,500. But if I approach one of these applicants or cadets and say we're gonna give them $3,000, I don't think they're gonna refuse it. Yeah.
Is there any other recruiting mechanism that we can use other than just the, I know salary is important, and that all the agencies are competing for officers as well. Is there anything else that we can do to encourage individuals to come to the city of Apopka to work? I think the governor was providing some
Correct.
funding as well for officers. Are we able to?
We haven't heard any update on where that funding is or when it's gonna be available. I don't think any funds have been released yet for that. I think that was for personnel moving from out of state. I believe he was offering them maybe $5,000, I believe it was.
To come.
Yes. You know,
All right.
we've been to colleges and we've been to Bethune-Cookman, we've been out to UCF, we've been to Florida A&M up in Tallahassee. So we're doing things different than we would ordinarily do to try to recruit, there's no doubt.
All right, well, I guess it's just going to become incumbent upon all of us to
Yes.
to seek out and recruit. I tried recruiting a couple from Ocoee, but it didn't work.
Yeah. Everywhere I go, I try to recruit them, so, yes.
All right.
Commissioner Bankston?
Yeah, I actually sent the name of a young man this week, so hopefully we can land that one. Again, thank you. Yeah, you helped us help you. This is really clear for us, and we absolutely need to make this jump, or we're going to be in a very difficult position. That's been my concern, of course, for our police department, knowing we've got to help bring this up where we need to be. So I have no problem with these numbers, and my concern would be, again, as you said, we don't know what they're going to be, these others are going to be offering. So is this even enough? I mean, you're bringing us close to the top of what the present list is. So I just want us to be mindful of that. We need to look at that. Again, the level of danger involved because of what's happened nationally obviously has increased. And so I think that's part of what's driving this. I wanted to ask, is there any, have we had any, how to state it, credible threats locally that we're aware of without you giving away anything other than the general threat that we feel as a nation? Are there things that concern you or concern the police department here locally? Obviously, we don't want to wait for a tragedy to happen.
Right.
But is there anything that we need to know to say, you know what, there's some credible issues that we're seeing that concern us?
No, but if there were, we would definitely advise. And, you know, the biggest thing is, you know, when we go home during the day and, you know, we just hope and pray that each one of our personnel make it home safe every day, every shift. And, you know, they always ask, you know, what's one thing that, you know, keeps you up at night? What are your troops out here doing? Are they safe? So that's the biggest fear.
Why did the education reimbursement go away, and when did that happen?
I can't answer that. I think it's been
Okay.
gone now for about 2 years now, I believe. if I'm not
So it
mistaken.
happened right under our noses and didn't realize that. Thank you for bringing that to the attention. We absolutely need to address that and deal with it. Big issue for me, you're asking us to fund this with funds that are already there, but we're going to need to add officers, as you said as well. So literally, a minimum of $750,000 we're going to be needing to look for. That's going to be another ask, and I just want to make sure that, well, let me ask this. Is that sufficient from our impact funds? You know, again, we tried to set those high knowing what was coming. is that going to help us deal with that 750,000 when it comes for personnel and vehicles?
Impact fees you can't use for personnel.
Okay, so again, then where are we going to be funding those things? That's what we need to be, I just want to think forward, because this is not something that we probably should do. This is something we're going to have to do.
Right.
So I just want to make sure, of course, for all of us, that we're looking forward to knowing that's not just an option to me, that's an absolute.
I think we balanced the budget last year. I mean, yes, he's right, because we've had those open positions, we've got money set aside, but the budget you're looking at is based on the revenue we've got coming in versus the expenses that we have. So it's not, you're right, we don't want to take money out, one-time money out for reoccurring expenses, so this does not do that. That's the question you're asking.
Just trying to pare down my list here. Let me ask this question. It's a difficult one to ask. If we were discussing a police tragedy, like what we just had to go through with our fire, is there anything that we would look at how we're operating that we should do better, should give better focus on? Just, again, being deputy chief, is there anything that you can tell us that we can anticipate to say, you know what, maybe we ought to get some more focus? And if it's a funding-related issue, that's why we're here, obviously, we want to be thinking ahead of that.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, great question, but, you know, we really don't even want to jinx us like that.
Right,
We
right.
don't want to have any tragedies and as such, but, you know, I think we're addressing it. We need to fund this because these officers that you see out here each and every day, they're coming in early, they're staying late, they're tired, are they getting the proper rest that they need? And if we don't get ahead of it, as many construction sites as I see with these city emblems on there, on the street name, we're gonna be in trouble. And if we don't do it now, even if we do it now, as far as the salary, we're still gonna be chasing. Because you know Orlando, Orange County, if corrections just went to 51,000 and the state at 50, they're gonna continue to go up. So we're gonna continue to be chasing. This is just a Band-Aid right now. We'll be back.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't even talk about our crime scene personnel. We didn't even address them here. We didn't address everyone over on 6th Street. It's just the ones that are right here in your face that you see every day, riding around the cars in the AC. I had one employee today. Well, why aren't we included in this? We do what we can while we can.
And that may be part of answering that question. Maybe we need to make sure that we're looking at it. So the bottom line is we want to get ahead and then be able to stay ahead. And, you know, I think you said we don't want to have to make the huge incremental jumps. We want to, or the huge jumps, we want to make those incremental steps that are not only keeping up, but gaining ground each time so we can get where we need to be. And I just want to, again, commend the police department because I believe one of the reasons we have seen something special in this city is one of the things you pointed out, even in the midst of COVID, whether it's the program giving the Christmas gifts to the kids, that increased, things that you've done, the cops and bobbers, things like that, that this community has a good relationship. And so thank you for doing that even during a challenging season. And yes, budget-wise, we've also come through a real challenge. Thank God we're seeing that and seeing some good numbers. So I'm hoping that some of the expected continued increase can help make up for that 750 and beyond, what we're going to need to do to catch up. And again, that should be always our goal as Apopka, should be at the top of those lists in every one of our departments. That's what we need to strive for. So again, thank you for a good presentation.
Commissioner Velasquez?
Well, you know that I have been following just across, not just the state, but outside of the state. And you're right, part of the challenge that we have, regardless of all these increases, is recruitment.
Yes.
And I just, that's not an answer, an easy answer. I just feel like if we can bring the salaries up, then we can be a little bit competitive. I'm sorry to hear that the officer that we swore in last month is gone. And there was no way to keep him, huh?
I don't know what's going on with him, but he said he was out, so I understand.
How many have under 5? What's the total personnel that you have under 5 right now?
I want to say it was 50% of our personnel.
50%.
Easy.
With us now increasing their salaries, are they kind of talking about having a commitment to Apopka? I mean, are they aware that we are in this budget season and that we are looking to increase their salary across, even for those that are already here?
They know that.
They do know
We've
that.
been spreading the word, and hopefully that they're tuning in this evening and listening to us.
Okay.
And, but yes, we have been spreading the word, so yes.
Well, thank you for this presentation. It says a lot about our police department, but you've been behind the 8 ball for years now. And so where would this bring us? If everything goes through, where would we be right now for 22, 23?
Well, I'll use an athletic analogy. You know, the coach always say, you got to get in the game. We're outside in the parking lot right now. We're not even in the ballpark.
Okay.
We need to get in the ballpark so we can make a difference, so we can make a change and be viable. And when we go on these recruiting trips and we go to these academies and they see that we're up to $51,000, I want to go work in Apopka. At least that'll attract them, because right now they're not even looking. You can go to Lake Mary, you can go to Winter Springs and make $46,000, $47,000, and they don't have the call volume like we have here. We're busy. If
Yeah, I
anyone
do.
didn't know, we are busy here in
I-
Apopka
Yeah, I do, because
all the time.
one of the newspapers I know does a weekly of how many calls you respond to.
Yes.
And they're always almost about 2,000 weekly.
I got friends that work over in Seminole County, like IT Director Hippler was saying earlier, that, you know, we're on Seminole County's cafe system. And I see individuals from agencies over in Seminole County, and they always say, man, they call it the scoreboard. They look at the screen and say, man, you guys are always busy in Apopka. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. So when you say 46.6, that's not enough to entice anyone to come here. It's not. Not when you go to Lake Mary, have 2 calls a night. You get 2 calls in 30 minutes here. I'm just being honest. I listen to them. I hear them out there. They're running call to call. And then we're asking them to come in early, stay late, come in on your day off. It wears on you after a while. It wears on you.
I think another challenge that we have also with our police officers is affordability as far as living. Because if they have to travel more than 10 to 20 miles to come to work, it's an added expense. And so that's why they're looking to go to different police departments closer to home. They make more money, and they're willing to sacrifice wanting to be in the police department they're happy with, but at the end of the day, it's really about finances. Is there anything that we are trying to do? I mean, we have so much development coming into our community where we can at least try and make some networking with some of our developers about, having, I guess, we call them workforce units, so that we can encourage them to kind of look for a home here close to Apopka.
Well, we're always looking for recommendations, and I'm a firm believer, you take care of the ones who take care of us. So we're always looking for recommendations.
So now, at the academies, are they seeing an increase of applicants, or are they seeing a major decrease of
I
their
think it's a
applicants?
decrease. I think
What?
it's on the downward spiral.
Downward.
Yeah.
So you're
The
really,
numbers.
you're really trying to go to these academies where the the applicants are not there.
We try to get in there early, but as you know, a lot of these sheriff offices, you know, they already have them picked. They got them chosen before we even get there. You know, they have open dates for us to come. And I'll tell our people, I said, let's get in there early as we can possibly get in there. As soon as they start the academy, let's get in there and see if we can talk to them. A lot of times, the sheriff office already have them when we get there.
Are they sponsoring them?
Yes, they are.
And we're not sponsoring at this point. At this time, do we have
We're
any?
not sponsoring right now, but, I mean, I've had talks with Chief McKinley, and he's talked to City Manager Ed Bass. If we find someone we need to sponsor, we will make it happen, yes. And that's why we went after these 3 spots for sponsorship, because we didn't have any in the budget.
Okay.
I'll take these 3 versus none. We can do something with it.
I had one final question. It kind of scared to ask about this, but South Apopka annexation. I don't even know what the question is. What does that look like?
I think that's a discussion for another night, but to be honest with you, we need to fill what we have right now before we talk about doing anything outside of what we already, our area of responsibility. Because if we don't do this, we can't do that.
Understood.
We can't. My people out here struggling right now. We're 20 positions down. We got to get them some help. It's facts.
So the funding that was, or the training that was funded that is not now, is that going to be funded?
What
So I know
training
you
is
mentioned
that?
the 3, but you said training, or not training,
Sponsoring.
yeah, sponsoring.
Sponsorship.
And the reimbursement for expenses.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, any last questions? Okay. Well, I guess that wraps us up for tonight. I'd like to thank,
Wait.
what?
Wait a minute.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
It's not- okay.
Good evening. My name's Alex Klepper. I'm the president of the Apopka Professional Firefighters Association. I just wanted to be able to speak, so I'm on this clock here. I'll try to speak quickly. I just put my brother in the ground. Something I should not have had to do, and I don't have the power to put anything in our budget, so I'm just here to lay out some truths. This city and this department cannot continue to operate as if Austin was struck by lightning on a cloudless day, or that it was the fault of just a trailer accident. It's been a month. It's been a month since Austin's accident opened all of our eyes, and absolutely nothing has been done to fix the environment and operational weaknesses that led to it. I've heard it said in this room on multiple occasions that if these were safety issues, that somebody would be up here jumping and screaming. Not one person screamed tonight. Not one person has screamed all week. And nobody's pounding on the desk, but we got to recognize that systems can fail, or at the very least, when they become stagnant, they need to be reviewed and they need to be reassessed and evaluated. Prior to this last week, we're scrambling to pull off an honorable ceremony for Austin and his family. He's working 5 days in a row, 6 a.m. to 10:30 at night, organizing that procession you saw out there for free, because that's the right thing to do to make sure that it happened correctly and honored him right. Prior to that, 2 weeks, I spent emailing chiefs, city commissioners, administrators, and the mayor, begging for help, begging for, at the very least, an emergency meeting of the safety committee that it be held to address a safety stand-down and reevaluate our department as a whole. What did I receive in return for those efforts? I was threatened, cursed at, met with anger, and the worst of all, inaction. I guess in some shameful way, I was willing to work around those things while he was alive, but I can't move past that now that he can no longer either. The youth and the experience of our department has been brought up tonight. It needs to be understood and managed appropriately. Over 50% of our department has 5 or less years on this job. 75% of our special operations team has less than that. Special operations, stuff that I'm not even qualified to do. The people that we're hiring, we're getting them straight out of high school. They don't have any prior life experience. They don't have any job experience to fall back on. And we're throwing them in with a 1-year person is now training somebody with 2 weeks on the job. That's their mentor. That's their oversight. That's not going to make anything safe for our community or for our firefighters. We need somebody at the top, and as some of you mentioned this evening, if we're adding an additional aerial vehicle, we have to have somebody at the top, somebody with the experience and the training and the know-how, someone who's accountable to pass that information down to our youth, right? I can't do it. We can't have 23 different lieutenants creating a training program for kids straight out of high school. We're not equipped for that. We have enough on our plate just to get by. We need a sole training officer. We desperately need one to address our needs and our problems. We need to be honest with ourselves. We desperately need a health and safety officer to save lives. How can we possibly look at ourselves in the mirror after a senseless death and think we continue to make health and life safety a side job of chiefs that are barely able to manage their monumental tasks as it is? I beg you today, please go back to the table and reconsider this budget proposal we just saw. We have to make room for a sole training officer, make room for a sole health and safety officer, fill the EMS compliance officer position that was approved in last year's budget and has disappeared. I think there was a fire inspector position as well, which we need, and I don't know where that went. Maybe I'm misremembering, but I thought that was there. Ultimately, we cannot afford to sit idly. We cannot afford to not reevaluate what our plans were and figure out what pivot must be made now. If there are better suggestions than mine, then please take those actions. I don't claim to have all the answers. But if we continue to operate in the same way, we'll be back here again when, and not if, our next firefighter dies, or even worse, one of our citizens that we're sworn to protect dies due to lack of self-awareness and lack of honesty. What's the cost? I don't know. What's the cost of losing another one of these guys here? We're putting it on their backs. It's not fair. And I can't just... That's it. I hope that you hear that today, and hopefully we can be honest with ourselves and prevent me from having to be here again. Thank you.
Good evening, Kyle Lamp, Vice President of Apopka Firefighter Association. I'm not going to rehash a lot of what Alex just said. I think he hit it on the head. Instead, tonight I'm going to present a different insight to this. It is repeatedly brought to light that we operate our squad system the same way after we modeled it after the Houston model. The model is based on the notion that we send the squad to supplement our manning on a fire. But it does not do that by sacrificing the minimum manning on a fire apparatus. In case no one has contacted Houston to figure out their model, I have. I'll educate everyone on how their squad system works. I personally talked with Marty Langton, the president of the Houston Professional Firefighters, Local 341, and this is exactly what he explained to me. They only use their squads for EMS. They didn't use them for fires. They have since gone away from their squads and converted them to transport units, since they were only being utilized for EMS anyways. They were a ALS, 2 paramedic response unit, to keep their transport units in service. We use them, as we say all the time, to supplement our manning on a fire. They run 4-man engines and only utilize the squad system as a rehab unit for their firefighters on a fire, not to meet the minimum manning. So the notion that we model our squad system after Houston is as far from the truth as possible. Because Marty explained to me they would never utilize a squad to meet minimum manning. As mentioned in the past, what good does a unit getting to a fire with no water do, except stand around and have people looking at them. I put a couple numbers together for you all to consider as well. From July 24th, 2021 until yesterday, July 24th, 2002, so 1 year period. In that 1 year, Squad 1 was not available for 1,616 calls, or 4.5 times a day. They're not available because they're running other calls. 550 times, Squad 5 was not available to run calls, or 1.5 times a day. So total combined, 6 times a day, those units aren't available for what we're trying to consider utilizing to meet our minimum manning on a fire. 188 fire calls last year based on the data that I can pull from our systems. 39% of the time, Squad 1 was on the call. 51% of the time, Squad 5 was on the call. 10% of the time, neither squad was available because they were running other calls. 400 times last year, 400 times, we left the fire station completely empty with no one there to run a call. If needed, since we are the only department that takes a fire truck out of service in order to run backup ambulance calls. Overtime is another area of concern, I think, as the commissioners hit on. Asking about what toll it takes on the body. Over the last year, we have had approximately 16,635 hours of overtime work by our personnel. Take that at 1.5 overtime payout with an overtime salary of $20 an hour that's the extreme low side. We are right about $500,000 paid out in overtime. That equates to about 11 additional bodies based on our starting salary. Or if you factor in benefits, 8 to 9 employees. We can't just keep putting the Band-Aid on a leaky wound here. We must do better as a department and as a city, give the residents and the firefighters the safety and protection that they need and deserve. 3 people should be a bare minimum on every fire truck, heavy rescue, tower truck, with 4 being the optimum. We can't continue fighting and waiting for the future to get to our 3-person engines. At what point do we say, okay, we can't risk losing another citizen, or heaven forbid, another employee, because we want to continue to live in the past and not bring safety to the forefront? In the long run, a lost life is just going to cost the city more money. I thank you all for your time, for your considerations, and I hope we just do the right thing going forward.
Firefighter, may I have a copy of that presentation that you have?
Yeah, I can get copies for you guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and I want to say, Alex, I haven't gotten any communications. I would love to. So please, what you had presented there, for some reason, I'm not on the list or copied in. I looked through and I haven't gotten any of that. So that's not by intention on my part. And this is helpful to get this kind of clarity. So thank you. And, appreciate it.
All right.
The only other thing I just want to kind of ask that I think I've asked, and that is, where are we with the union?
Well, that's not for budget workshop, but.
Oh, it's not?
Yeah.
And why, I mean, we're working with a budget right now, but they did vote for a union. So where are we with the union?
We haven't had any discussion, we haven't had a contract in front of us.
You haven't had a contract put in front of you?
Just briefly, our plan on that was to have that communication with the city by the end of July. Unfortunately, the events have pushed it, hopefully in August.
Okay,
We should have the beginning of those meetings started,
okay,
or at least that information sent to you, but schedule was pushed.
okay. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank Jessica, putting in a lot of hard work in the last couple of weeks, months, putting these budget proposals together for all the departments. She's really worked tirelessly, I know, with Vladimir and her whole team. So I want to thank her for getting what it's a pretty good financial tentative budget for you. And also, it's great to have Edward Bass back, first night back on the, so we want to thank him and Jessica and the finance team. So thank you, everybody. That'll close our public hearing.